Hey there, Cinemaster fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. Our film begins with a girl named Tina, who appears different and animal-like in her appearance. This causes her embarrassment because of how she looks. We learn that she works as an officer at Customs, where, with her extraordinary and supernatural ability, she can smell travelers' scents, detect their emotions, and track smugglers. One day while working, she identifies the scent of a traveler and realizes he has a bag containing alcohol. She confiscates the bag and reports it to her colleague. The young man offers to buy it back, but she refuses and insists on taking it because he is underage. He reluctantly agrees, fearing she might detain him on smuggling charges. At the end of the day, Tina returns to her secluded house in the forest. We find out that she has allowed her friend Ronald, who works as a dog trainer, to stay at her home. She becomes very scared when the dog attacks her, but Ronald takes the dog away, explaining that it has a condition. She ignores his explanation and goes for a walk in the forest, exploring her surroundings. It becomes evident that she is deeply interested in nature and especially fond of animals. The next day, Tina arrives at work and resumes her unusual hobby of sniffing travelers. This time, she stops a traveler and searches him with her colleague, but they find nothing suspicious in his bag. However, Tina is convinced that he is carrying something illegal. She asks for his phone, and as soon as she sniffs it, she detects a small chip. The young man quickly swallows it, but they manage to retrieve it and arrest him. Tina returns to work again, but this time she encounters a traveler whose scent she cannot identify. He resembles her greatly and shares the same animal-like physical traits. She requests to search him, but finds nothing except insects, so she has to let him go as there is no evidence against him. After work, Tina visits her father at the care home, where we learn he suffers from early-stage Alzheimer's. She is overjoyed when he remembers her name and identity. They sit and talk, and he asks about Ronald, expressing concern that Ronald might be taking advantage of her by staying at her house without paying rent or contributing to expenses. We learn that despite Ronald staying with Tina for a long time, Tina sees herself as unattractive and physically different from him. Tina tells her father she likes having Ronald around because she doesn't like being alone at home. At night, Tina returns home and tells Ronald about her visit to her father, mentioning that his condition is worsening to the point where he sometimes cannot recognize or remember her. It becomes clear that Ronald is not genuinely interested in Tina and is only staying with her for convenience. The next day, Tina meets with her supervisor, Agneta, who informs her that the retrieved chip contains disturbing images of child abuse. Agneta is surprised by how Tina was able to identify the presence of the chip, especially since it was her first time encountering such a case. Tina explains that she didn't know what was on the chip, but was able to smell it on the traveler. She elaborates that she can detect certain types of things and sense people's emotions, whether sexual, angry, or psychological. Agneta takes her to her office and explains that the young man denies all charges against him, but they suspect he knows who is producing the films. Since they don't have a clear suspect to target, Agneta assigns Tina the task of tracking down the person responsible for making the films. The next day, Tina encounters the same traveler again and requests to conduct a personal search because she senses an unfamiliar scent she cannot identify. Her colleague steps in to search him and discovers that the traveler is transgender. He reveals that he has a scar on his back, which unsettles Tina because she has a similar scar on her back. She apologizes to him, feeling guilty for her actions, and he reassures her that there is no need for her to feel bad. He introduces himself as Vor, an entomologist who is constantly traveling and never settles in one place. Later, Tina visits her father again and asks him about the scar on her back. He tells her that she fell on a sharp object when she was 3 years old, requiring stitches at the hospital. On her way back home, Tina is stopped by her neighbor, Steven, who asks for her help. He explains that his wife is in labor and needs to be rushed to the hospital. While driving, Tina suddenly stops the car, surprising Steven, who doesn't understand why. He is shocked when a herd of animals appears on the road, wondering how Tina knew they were nearby. The next day, Tina visits Vor at the hotel where he is staying and finds him in the garden collecting worms. She's surprised when she sees him eating them, and he encourages her to try one. When she refuses, he puts one in her mouth, and to her astonishment, she likes the taste. She asks him about his stay at the hotel, and he complains about the place but says he has no choice but to stay there. At the end of the day, Tina invites Vor to her house and shows him the guest room. She introduces him to Ronald, who doesn't seem pleased with Vor's presence and feels uneasy around him. Later, Vor notices a mark on Tina's face, and she explains that it's from lightning that struck her when she was young. He reveals that he has a similar mark on his chest and shows it to her. The next day, Tina and her colleague are shown surveilling a suspect. When Tina smells something related to sexual assault, she follows the suspect into a building, determined to reach the apartment he entered. Her colleague warns her to be cautious and avoid causing trouble since they don't have a warrant. Tina insists that this is part of their mission and begins sniffing around the area. She detects the scent of a child but is interrupted when a woman from one of the apartments asks what they are doing. Tina becomes flustered, but her colleague quickly diffuses the situation, and they leave. Later, Tina meets with Agneta, who advises them to be more careful. Tina expresses her certainty that something involving a child is happening in the apartment. Her colleague confirms that he also heard the sound of a child inside, suspecting the child might be kidnapped or unregistered. After work, Tina spends time with Vor, opening up to him about her life. She shares how, as a child, she always felt ugly and different from others, the rest of her gender. But when she grew up, she found that she was an ordinary human being and that all she had was a chromosomal defect. Fori laughs at her words and tells her that there is nothing wrong with her. She tells him that her only flaw is that she cannot have children or bear a child. Then Tina appears with Asur, carrying her little daughter. She tries to practice motherhood with her, but the child keeps crying. Asur takes her. Steven enters with Fori, and they realize he is their new neighbor. He plays with the little girl and then returns to his cat. But what happens is that he appears to be in pain. At that moment, he goes out to the forest so that no one can hear his voice. He sits on the ground, and it becomes clear that something small came out of him. And at that moment, he feels relieved and returns to his normal state. The next day, Tina appears inspecting the required apartment with her colleague, who, as soon as he notices that the apartment owners have left, tells her they have an hour to search the house before they return. Both of them quickly go down, and Tina manages to open the apartment map based on her experience. They enter the apartment and walk cautiously. At that moment, Tina finds a baby crib and realizes that the child was recently there. She enters the office room and keeps sniffing the room until she finds a cup hanging. She takes it, and as soon as she opens it, she finds a video camera inside, showing children being tortured. Investigations begin with the apartment owner, and we find out his name is Patrick. At that time, the agent questions him about the baby crib found in his apartment, even though he has no children. He tells her that he had a 1-year-old child under his care and that she can ask social services to verify his claim. She shows him the video footage, but he says he knows nothing about it. However, she tells him that fingerprints and DNA evidence are on the camera. She asks him about the girl in the video, but he denies knowing her or filming the video. When Tina returns home, Ronald calls her and tells her about Fori, revealing that his behavior is strange and that he always leaves his room at odd times. At that moment, Fori appears, eating worms with a box he puts in the fridge and seals tightly. The next day, we see Ronald traveling to attend a dog show, hoping to win the Best Show award. He asks Tina to call him if she needs anything and leaves. Moments later, Fori knocks on her door and sits with her, but suddenly they hear a strange sound, terrifying them both so much that they hide under the table. At night, they appear together in the forest. Tina asks him about himself, and he tells her that he is a dwarf, and that the chromosomal change gave him a male tail, which is why he cannot have children. He explains that their kind has a strong sense of smell, and that lightning always follows them. He tells her it's better to cut it off and get rid of it. He reveals that there is a group of dwarfs like them in Finland, and to reach them, she must allow them to find her. He expresses his desire to find them, so he can take her with him and be together. Days later, Ronald returns home and eats with Tina and Fori, noticing the strange relationship between them. Fori reveals that they are relatives and old family friends. The next day, Tina goes to her job, visibly exhausted, to the extent that her colleague hears the sound of alcohol bottles clinking among the passengers, even though she cannot smell them. He suggests she take a break to rest. At night, Tina appears with Fori, who tells her that she has managed to adapt to humans, evidenced by her stable job and home. He explains that humans fear them because they know vengeance is coming. He tells her he knows nothing about her family, only that medical experiments were conducted on his body in the 1970s, allowing him to live 10 years after the torture he endured. He was then transferred to an orphanage. He tells her that all humans are evil and that she should never rely on them. As an example, he mentions that her father lied to her all her life. At dawn, Tina gets into her car and visits her father. She tells him that she has always thought of herself as ugly, with everyone disgusted by her and bullying her. Her father becomes angry and tells her to speak respectfully. She breaks down and asks him about her real family. At that moment, the nurse enters and ends the visit. Tina leaves, devastated, and returns home, taking out all her anger on Ronald. She throws the television into the street and tells him he will no longer live with her from that day onward. She gives him until she wakes up to take his belongings and leave. Later, Tina visits Fori in his room and is surprised to find the fridge tightly sealed. He tells her that everyone has their privacy. She reveals that she has kicked out Ronald, and he is thrilled by the news. A little later, Tina returns to Otto, but she is shocked to hear a sound coming from the fridge. She tries to open it and finds a box inside. She is horrified to see a strange, frightening-looking small child in the box. Terrified, she puts it back in the fridge. The next day, she appears at the investigation with the apartment owner and Patrick's wife, confessing in tears that none of them harmed the children. They only filmed them. She tearfully says she saw the person who asked her to do this once, and that he was the one who brought them the children. In the police car, Patrick is taken to identify the person who asked them to film the children. Suddenly, an animal crosses their path, and Patrick is pulled out of the car and attacked by someone who kills him. Tina arrives at the crime scene and sniffs out who did it, shocked to discover it was Forey. He tells her he had to do it before Patrick confessed. She is devastated and asks about the child in the fridge. He tells her it's not a child but an unfertilized egg that, as long as it's in the fridge, is safe. He explains that it is not his offspring. They always come out of him regularly and feed on nutrients. The egg's body resembles a child's but is soft and does not live long. She asks why he keeps it, and he reveals that he takes human children, as they tortured him, and sells them. He believes they must suffer as he did. She slaps him in the face, calling him sick, and leaves his room in tears. The next day, she wakes up and walks in the forest, eating worms from the trees. Suddenly, she is shocked to see an ambulance at her neighbor Esther's house. She enters to find out what's happening and is horrified to see Esther's daughter's features have changed, turning into a monster with her eyes unrecognizable. She realizes Forey is responsible and rushes to his room, finding him gone, along with the box. She finds a note he left, saying she is not human and asking her to meet him on the boat. She goes there, and Forey is surprised to see her, telling her he didn't expect her to follow his instructions. He tells her that now is the time that their forces unite, and they gather a large number of them. So she apologizes to him and tells him that villainous roles don't suit her, that she doesn't like to harm anyone, and she calls the police, who arrest him. But Forey turns out to be smarter than them and manages to escape, throwing himself into the water. Afterward, Tina meets her father and learns about her life from him. He tells her that he used to work in a mental hospital, where he met her parents and the rest of her kin. At that time, he was asked to raise her and take care of her. He informs her that her name was Conriva, and that her parents were buried in the old cemetery behind the main building. At that moment, Tina goes to their gravesite and visits them. Days later, Tina is surprised to find a box in front of her door. She takes it, opens it, and is shocked to find the same child, but older. She takes him in and decides to raise him. When she finds him hungry, she feeds him insects, and the child smiles at her. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates. See you in the next video. Hey there, Cinemaster fans! Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. Our film begins in a boarding school unlike any other school. We see a group of students sitting with a new teacher, Novak. We learn that she is a nutrition instructor specializing in improving dietary habits. She asks each of them why they chose a subject focused on improving eating behaviors. Their answers vary. Some believe that food and exercise don't go hand in hand. Others want to reduce meat consumption for environmental reasons. And some think food is the reason for their lack of focus in studies. Later, Novak meets with Dorset, the school principal, who informs her that the students' parents expect them to improve their children's eating habits. Novak invites Dorset to try her tea, which she personally prepares. We find out that Novak produces a specific type of healthy tea. Meanwhile, a student named Rajna is seen dining with her parents. We notice that they only eat vegetarian food. They ask Rajna to demonstrate mindful eating techniques. Rajna's father later reveals to her mother that he was the one who suggested the school hire Novak. We learn that Novak is very famous and well-known in the field of nutrition. At the same time, another student named Elsa is having a meal with her parents. She stares intently at the food without eating, which annoys her father. He asks her to eat like a normal person and stop mimicking her mother. He doesn't believe in the mindful eating practices they are trying to adopt. Back at school, Novak notices a student named Fred eating alone. She learns that he didn't visit his family over the weekend. She invites him to join her for yoga sessions. The next morning, Rajna is seen playing on the trampoline, while Fred is practicing ballet with the teacher. Later, the students gather with Novak, and Fred shares that he focused on what he ate the previous day. As a result, his hunger disappeared. He ate less, reduced his insulin dose, and felt less tired after eating. Novak explains to the group that mindful eating helps improve the body's metabolism. She teaches them that when the body goes without food for a while, cells begin to eliminate harmful substances and renew themselves, which detoxifies the body. This practice can extend a person's lifespan by 10 to 20 years. During the break, the students eat together. Their plates contain very small portions, but they eat cautiously. Novak approaches a student named Ben, who is eating normally. She asks him to take a small bite and chew slowly, explaining that this will help him eat less. Elsewhere, Elsa notices Ben with Rajna and mocks him for getting chocolate to eat. Ben retorts, accusing Elsa of seeking attention. Surprised by his comment, Elsa walks away. Later, Elsa confides in Rajna, mentioning that she admires her strong willpower and self-control. She wishes she could avoid eating altogether, but her father forces her to eat. Rajna reassures her that many people, like her father, struggle to accept the idea of eating very little, as it challenges their own eating habits and mistakes. That night, Fred practices yoga in his room. He gets annoyed with Ben, who is eating, and asks when he will improve his eating habits. Ben ignores him, leading Fred to ask why he dislikes Novak. Ben replies that he doesn't want to be like the others. This angers Fred, who mocks Ben for being disliked by everyone. The next morning, the students gather with Novak, who informs them that all food is essentially waste, and that the only healthy options are vegetables and fruits. She introduces them to a mono diet, focusing on eating only one type of vegetable per day. During the break, each student receives a single potato on their plate. They eat it slowly to feel full. However, Elsa, who is particularly hungry, eats her portion quickly and rushes to the bathroom to vomit. She later confesses to Novak that she ate mindlessly because she was starving. Novak reassures her that it's human nature to make mistakes. She encourages Elsa to show her willpower and regain control. After leaving Novak's office, Elsa and Liam wait for Rajna, who offers them some of Novak's special tea. Meanwhile, Fred has a video call with his parents and younger brother. He tells them he misses them and wants to visit, but his parents refuse due to his poor exam grades, insisting he stay and focus on his studies. Fred attends a ballet lesson, but his instructor notices he is distracted. When asked if something is bothering him, Fred remains silent. He decides to speak with Novak, expressing frustration that his parents don't trust him, always making him feel like a failure. Novak tries to comfort him and boost his confidence. The next day, Novak meets with Dorset, explaining that not all students are responding to the mindful eating program, especially Ben. Dorset is surprised, as Ben is a talented and intelligent student. Novak explains that Ben refuses to try mindful eating, and she cannot give him a full grade in nutrition because he isn't applying her teachings. Without the grade, Ben risks losing his scholarship. Dorset reveals that Ben's mother is a single parent and his father is deceased, which might be affecting him. She later takes Ben to her office, explaining that the mindful eating program could benefit him, helping him secure the scholarship and ease his mother's financial burden. During the mindful eating session, Ben participates with his classmates. When Novak asks why he eats mindlessly, Ben responds that it's simply natural for him and that he has no specific reason, other than the fact that he cannot upset his mother because she loves cooking all his favorite meals. Novak tells Ben and everyone present that if they continue to fulfill all their parents' demands, they will lose themselves. She asks Ben if he is willing to change, and he agrees to try. Over the weekend, Ben is at his mother's house, and she prepares the food he loves while being happy to have him around. At that moment, Ben's mother notices that he has started eating mindfully and realizes that he is not obligated to do anything against his will, not even for a scholarship. She says that the school he attends is not suitable for him, his mindset, or their financial situation because he is not wealthy. Meanwhile, at school, Elsa and Ragna are sitting with Novak, discussing a video they saw online about someone who derives energy from light and does not eat at all. They ask her if this is really possible, and she tells them about a club called Zero, whose members abstain from eating entirely. She mentions knowing one of its members but explains that the club is secret because the world finds it hard to believe that they are right and everyone else is wrong. Elsa and Ragna ask if they can join the club, and Novak is thrilled. She requests that the club's existence remain a secret, as no one knows about it. At night, Fred goes with Novak to an opera party where they coincidentally encounter Doris. When they greet him, it is evident that Novak and Fred are reluctant to talk to him. The next morning at school, Daw goes to Novak's class and asks her to send Fred out because it's time for his ballet lesson, and Fred is late. Novak responds coldly, informing him that Fred is currently in a meditation session and will come afterward. Daw leaves, frustrated. During this time, Novak speaks to the students about their activities, telling them they will be part of the machine that will survive after the world's decline. She has them practice meditation while singing a specific song associated with their training. It is then revealed that Novak has convinced the students to join the Zero Club and abstain from eating entirely. However, 2 students refuse to continue in the club, stating they can reduce their food intake but cannot live without eating. Fred and the other students mock them, calling them weak and lacking willpower. Over the weekend, Elsa is sitting at the dining table with her mother and refuses to eat. Surprisingly, her mother supports her decision and says she will also stop eating. At the same time, Ragna is at home with her parents, claiming she is full and lying that she ate earlier because she was very hungry. However, her parents don't believe her because she looks frail and undernourished. Ragna becomes upset and tells her mother that she was the one who asked her to watch her weight and not gain weight. Now, her mother is upset because she is not eating. Ragna storms off to her room, angry, and sends a voice message to Elsa, expressing her happiness and newfound sense of peace, which she attributes to not eating anything all day. Elsa replies, saying she also feels relieved, especially since she no longer has to purge after eating. After 2 days, Ragna's parents talk to her because she hasn't eaten anything in that time. She reassures them that she is fine and explains that what she is doing is part of a mindful eating program supervised by Novak. Meanwhile, Ben's mother visits the school principal, Doris, to complain about Novak and her influence on the students, accusing her of manipulating them and encouraging them not to eat. Doris defends Novak, saying she teaches the students mindful eating and provides significant support. During this time, the students are seen pretending to eat during lunch while their plates are full of food. Doris notices this and asks one of the students, Helen, if she is feeling unwell since she isn't eating. She also inquires why Fred isn't attending ballet lessons, mentioning that the instructor complained about him. Fred explains that he failed a math test and wanted to dedicate more time to studying. Later, Doris sits with Novak and deliberately eats a biscuit in front of her, apologizing for eating too much. Novak, without realizing it, responds that it's normal until one gets used to not eating at all. Doris is taken aback by this comment and begins to suspect that Ben's mother might have been right. Novak is later seen in her room, anxious and worried because she accidentally revealed too much to Doris, which could expose her involvement in the Zero Club and her efforts to recruit students. It is then revealed that Novak follows a strange cult, praying to its deity for guidance and support to continue her journey. The next morning, Ben tries to wake Fred but finds him unresponsive. Panicked, he rushes out to seek help. Fred is taken to the hospital, where it is revealed that he has fallen into a diabetic coma due to incorrect insulin doses. His life is in danger. The doctor informs Fred's father that his body is extremely weak and appears malnourished, suggesting he hasn't eaten in a long time. Fred's father confronts Doris about his son's condition and how he became so emaciated. Doris assures him that student health is their top priority and attributes Fred's weight loss to his diabetes. Fred bids his father farewell with visible sadness as his father leaves him in a weakened state. Meanwhile, Ragna is secretly eating, but later visits Doris's office to discuss Novak, particularly her close relationship with Fred. Doris then speaks with the ballet instructor, Da, who expresses his discomfort with Novak, describing her as strange and her relationship with Fred as even stranger. Doris becomes increasingly concerned, sensing that Novak poses a threat to the students and the school. Ragna's father organizes a meeting with other parents, as he was the one who suggested Novak teach their children mindful eating. However, he reveals that Novak took one of the students to the opera, which is strictly prohibited. During the meeting, one parent expresses a desire to have Novak dismissed from the school, and everyone agrees. The next day, Doris informs Novak that she will be let go based on the parent's request. Novak is shocked, and, as she leaves Doris's office, she overhears. Her fellow teachers are talking about her, saying that she is the reason for her being tense. They also mention that her weight has become very light, and she bounces off the trampoline while playing. They suspect she has become overly attached to the students because she has no children or family and lives alone. When Novak returns home, she prays to her gods, asking them to guide her on the right path. At night, Freddy visits Novak to get to know her, trust her, and believe in her. Later, we see parents struggling with their children to get them to eat normally again, especially Elsa, whose father upsets her by forcing her to eat against her will. After eating, she runs to the bathroom to throw up, but discovers that her parents have locked the bathrooms. The next day, Elsa locks herself in her room, refusing to eat, and tells her father that the way food is produced today poses a danger to humanity, destroying their bodies and health. She believes that anyone deprived of food is a free person and a threat to capitalism. Her mother responds, warning her that she will suffer from malnutrition and die. Later, Elsa's parents discover that she ate, but then put her finger in her mouth to vomit it up. Shockingly, she then eats the vomit from the plate with a fork. At this moment, her parents are horrified by their daughter's condition. Suddenly, Elsa tells them that the only person who can change her perspective on food is her teacher, Novak. Elsa's parents decide to meet with the parents of Ragna and Ben to discuss Novak, believing she is the only one who can help their children. Initially, Ben's mother objects to seeking Novak's help, blaming her for what happened to their children. However, she eventually agrees. We then see all the students gathered at Novak's house, where they officially become members of the Zero Club. They are all happy about this. On Christmas, each student celebrates with their family, seemingly eating normally. However, the next morning, the maid discovers that Elsa has hidden a container under her bed to vomit into, deceiving her family into thinking she is eating. She later disappears. Around the same time, Ben's and Rajna's parents discover that their children are mimicking Elsa's behavior and have also run away. It is revealed that they have all fled with Novak to a distant, isolated place. At school, all the parents are sitting with Doros and are wronged by what happened to their children and because the excuse Helen gave them. And it appears that she is upset because she didn't escape with them because of her travel to Switzerland with her mother. Suddenly, Elsa's mother says that she will stop eating in order to understand the reason that made her daughter do all of this. So Helen tells her that faith is the reason. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates. See
Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in Deadpool. On his first day, when he's riding in a taxi with an Indian driver, he sits next to him, gets to know him, and finds out his name is Dopinder. Dopinder tells Deadpool about the girl he loved and how, unfortunately, his cousin took her from him. Deadpool encourages him not to let his cousin have her and to fight for his right. We learn that Deadpool himself recently came out of a love relationship, which is why he advises Dopinder to fight for his love. When the driver asks why Deadpool is dressed like that, Deadpool explains that he's wearing the suit because his face is disfigured, and the one who caused his face to look like that is a gang leader named Ajax. Deadpool is now on his way to fight Ajax to restore his appearance to normal. He says he's been waiting for this moment for 1 year and 6 months. However, Deadpool suddenly realizes he forgot his weapons at home and only has 1 pistol with him. He's supposed to fight an entire gang with just 12 bullets. Deadpool gets out of the taxi, sits on the bridge railing, and waits for Ajax and his gang. Meanwhile, Ajax is negotiating with a military officer about sending him superhumans, whom Ajax will transform in his lab to be used by the military in wars. The deal is successfully completed, and as they approach the bridge, Deadpool spots them and prepares himself. He jumps onto one of their cars, starts shooting everyone inside, and even throws gang members out of the car. It's clear that Deadpool is highly skilled and very strong. When the cars surround him, he accelerates to get away. He grabs one person, tries to choke him, and makes him swallow a lighter. Suddenly, the car flips over, and the entire gang is thrown to the ground. Deadpool manages to eliminate them all without much effort. This causes a lot of accidents on the road, and the news spreads everywhere, reporting that the cause of these accidents is a man in a red suit. Watching the news is a superhuman named Colossus, who gets very upset and goes to a woman named Negasonic, another superhero. They decide they must stop Deadpool. They board a plane and head to his location, where Deadpool is hiding inside a car, surrounded by gang members armed with weapons. Suddenly, Deadpool leaps into the air and starts shooting at them, each bullet aimed with precision. He successfully kills everyone around him. However, a man on a motorcycle appears and shoots at Deadpool. Despite being hit, Deadpool doesn't die. We learn that his body is immune to bullets and can regenerate and heal itself. Deadpool tries to kill the motorcyclist, but the man escapes. Unfortunately, Deadpool is left with only 7 bullets. When fired upon, he dodges the bullets without shooting back, treating the fight like a video game. He's confident, jokes a lot, and manages to kill the gang members with a single bullet by firing it into a grenade, which eliminates them. But Deadpool is shocked to find that the gang leader also doesn't die or get affected by bullets. Deadpool then draws his swords and stabs him. At this point, we flash back 2 years to learn about Deadpool before everything happened. But at this time, we go back 2 years, so that here we start to get to know Deadpool before it happens to him. What happened, and we know that his name was originally Wilson, and that he looked very normal and he didn't have any deformity or anything, but he was working as a thug who traded to beat people, and we see him going to a guy named Jeremy, and they beat him and he threatens to kill him, to keep him away from a girl named Megan. And Jeremy actually gets scared and listens to what he says, and when he goes to reassure Megan, she gets very happy and tells him that he is her hero. And here Wilson gets upset because he doesn't see himself as a hero or anything, and that he is basically a bad person and takes money in exchange for being a thug. Anyway, after that, they go to inn, and his crush is there, the love of his life for the first time, and he flirts with her, and her name is Venetia, and we see that she also reciprocates the same feelings, and they actually go out with each other. And after that, Wilson proposes to Vanessa that they get married, and she actually agrees. But a few minutes later, Wilson faints and goes to get checked. But the doctors surprise them that he has cancer spread all over his body, and here Vanessa advises him to start treatment as soon as possible. But unfortunately, the doctor tells them that his condition is very advanced and that there is no treatment at this stage. So Wilson is very upset because he does not want to die and leave Veneca. Anyway, we return to the present time after Deadpool finished off this man, and then another man appears to him on a motorcycle. And Deadpool knows that he is Ajax, so here Deadpool flies and throws an iron weapon at him and actually knocks him off the motorcycle and keeps hitting him in a very strong way. And when he asks him about the way to return his face to normal again, like where Ajax was, he refuses to tell him, so Deadpool immediately stabs him with the sword and takes off the mask. And they know that Wilson is the one who destroyed his face, and he decides to follow him and pulls and throws him away. And here we return again to the past when Wilson was talking to Vanessa and tells her that he will go to the hospital and get treatment and be in the best condition, and he refuses to give up and wants to make good memories with Vanessa before he dies. Anyway, before he goes to the hospital, he goes to the bar to greet his friend and slips, and here he gives him a card for a man sitting behind him and tells him that he wants him. And when he goes to sit with him, he learns that his name is Agent Smith, and they learn that this agent works for an organization that can cure him of his illness, and he tells him that you will not only get better, but you will also become a superhero. But of course, Wilson does not believe him and leaves and walks after that. But he spends the whole night thinking about what this agent said, and they read a letter to this organization because he wants to get better and continue with Vanessa. And anyway, he will die, so he will not lose anything. And we return again to the present time when Coliseum saves Ajax from Deadpool. And Coliseum then offers Deadpool to join the X-Team and tells him that he must use his supernatural abilities for good. But Deadpool refuses and tells him that this team is for good people who help people and that he is not that person, and asks him to stay away from him so that he can kill Ajax. And when he looks at him, he finds him escaping. So Deadpool gets angry and keeps hitting Coliseum. But of course, we know that he is not affected because his body is made of metal. Instead, Deadpool is the one who gets hurt, with his hands breaking, bouncing around from the blows. At this point, Colossus handcuffs him to take him to Mr. X, the leader of the X-Men team. However, we are surprised when Deadpool cuts off his hand to escape. He does so successfully, throwing himself into a garbage truck. We know his body will heal itself, and a new hand will grow in place of the one he lost. We then flash back to the day Wilson underwent the procedure that would turn him into a superhero. When he enters the lab and sees the people being experimented on, he deeply regrets his decision, becomes terrified, and wants to leave. However, they don't let him leave and tie him up with straps. At this moment, Ajax appears, revealing that he will be the one conducting the experiment. Wilson learns that the experiment will cause him immense pain, but if successful, will turn him into a superhero. The assistant, Angel, injects him with a substance that alters his entire genetic makeup. Ajax explains that for the experiment to succeed, Wilson's human emotions must die along with him. They subject him to extreme torture and pressure for weeks, using every method of torment until he either transforms or dies. Unfortunately, none of the torture methods work. Ajax then tells him they will place him in an oxygen tube, withdrawing the oxygen all at once. When they sense that Wilson is on the brink of death, they will return the oxygen and repeat this process all day until he transforms. Wilson begs them to stop and admits he no longer wants to continue the experiment, but Ajax tells him it's no longer up to him. He must become a superhero because the lab is working to create super soldiers to sell to the military for massive profits. Despite his protests, they put him in the capsule and continue the experiment. Wilson begins to suffocate, but at that moment, signs of transformation appear, and he becomes a superhero, healing from his illness. However, the genetic mutation drastically changes his appearance, leaving him with a terrifying look. Ajax tells him that he is the only one who can restore his appearance, but refuses to do so, wanting to force Wilson to remain a soldier under his control. When Angel tries to untie Deadpool, he attacks her, takes a matchstick, and hides it in his mouth. When they return him to the capsule, he uses the matchstick to ignite an explosion, destroying the lab. Wilson attacks Ajax, showing his newfound strength. However, Ajax reveals that he too is a superhero and warns Wilson that killing him would not be in his best interest, since he is the only one who can restore Wilson's original appearance. The two fight until Ajax impales Wilson with an iron rod, leaving him for dead. The fire in the lab intensifies, destroying the facility. Hours later, we discover that Wilson is still alive, having been saved by his superhuman healing abilities, which regenerate his cells. From this point on, his only concern is his girlfriend Vanessa. He tracks her down and follows her, but when he considers approaching her, he notices how people are terrified of his appearance. Fearing Vanessa will reject him, he decides not to speak to her. Wilson returns to his friend Weasel and tells him he plans to fight Ajax and his gang to force Ajax to restore his appearance. Weasel suggests he wear a mask to hide his identity from Ajax and avoid scaring people. Wilson then goes home and begins crafting a suit, calling himself Deadpool. His first suit is white, and he uses it to fight a gang to learn Ajax's location. However, he realizes the white suit is impractical because it becomes soaked with blood after every fight. He decides to create a red suit to hide the bloodstains. Fight after fight, he works his way up the gang's hierarchy, getting closer to Ajax. Along the way, he continuously improves his suit until it becomes the version we recognize today. Deadpool devises a plan and eliminates Ajax's men one by one, but fails to locate Ajax. However, he captures a man named Smith and beats him until he reveals Ajax's location. The next day, Deadpool takes a taxi, leading to the events we saw earlier, where he ends up in the garbage truck. Frustrated that his plan failed and he couldn't kill Ajax, he returns home. There we learn he lives with a blind woman named Elle. Meanwhile, Ajax returns to his hideout, where Angel tends to his wounds. Ajax decides to hunt down Deadpool and kill him, knowing Deadpool won't stop trying to kill him. At the same time, Deadpool confides in Allie, who encourages him to return to Vanessa and explain everything. She reassures him that love isn't about appearances. However, Deadpool dismisses her words, saying she's only saying that because she's blind and can't see him. He believes she would be disgusted by his appearance if she could see him. At the same time, Ajax and Angel arrive at the bar, where Deadpool frequently hangs out. They interrogate Weasel, but he pretends not to know Deadpool. However, Angel spots a photo of Deadpool and Vanessa at the bar, realizing Weasel is lying. She grabs him by the neck, but the other bar patrons draw their guns, forcing Ajax and Angel to leave. Weasel calls Deadpool to inform him of what happened. Fearing that Vanessa might be targeted, Deadpool rushes to her workplace. He finds her unharmed, but when he tries to approach her, he hesitates at the last moment. Deadpool retreats to the bathroom to psych himself up to talk to her. Meanwhile, someone approaches Vanessa, telling her someone wants to see her outside. When she steps outside, Angel attacks and kidnaps her. Deadpool emerges from the bathroom to find Vanessa gone, with her wallet lying on the ground. Realizing Ajax has taken her, he returns home, devastated that he couldn't save her. Shortly after, he receives a message from Ajax, instructing him to meet at a specific location. Deadpool immediately gears up, taking all his weapons with him, and before he leaves, he bids her farewell and thanks her for letting him live with her. He goes to seek help from Colossus and Negasonic, telling them they must assist him because they are the reason Ajax escaped him. At this point, Negasonic agrees to help. For the second time, they reach Dopinder, who tells him he tried to get back with his girlfriend, but she rejected him because his cousin is better looking. However, Dopinder didn't stay quiet and kidnapped his cousin, locking him in the car trunk. When Deadpool hears this, he is overjoyed but pretends to be upset so Dopinder doesn't hit him. He tells Dopinder that what he did was wrong. Eventually, he arrives at the location and gets out of the taxi. But the surprise is that Deadpool forgets his bag of weapons in the taxi. When he calls to get his weapons back, unfortunately, he finds out that Dopinder had an accident and can't return them. So Deadpool decides to fight with just the sword he has. They are shocked to see many armed soldiers surrounding them. Ajax and Angel are standing on the building, waiting for them. When Angel comes down to kill them, Colossus goes to confront her. Naturally, we expect him to defeat her, but surprisingly, with one blow, she sends him flying. At this point, Negasonic decides to use her power, transforming into a fiery mass and attacking Angel. Meanwhile, the soldiers start shooting at them. Colossus throws a couch at the soldiers, killing them all. On the other side, Dopinder is hiding, waving a white flag signaling his surrender. The soldiers stop shooting, and Deadpool comes out to talk to them. He tries to convince them that Ajax is exploiting them and that Deadpool can protect them if they side with him, but the soldiers don't listen and start shooting at him. Deadpool decides to fight them with his sword, flying and slashing their heads and cutting their bodies in half. Meanwhile, Colossus is still fighting Angel, and Negasonic helps Deadpool reach the upper level using her fiery power, propelling him upward. Ajax has Vanessa trapped in a capsule. Deadpool reassures her that he will save her, but Ajax starts removing the oxygen from the capsule. They begin fighting, but Deadpool quickly acts, aiming his sword at the capsule and managing to let oxygen flow back in. Vanessa breathes again. Deadpool continues to face Ajax with just one sword until, unfortunately, the sword breaks, leaving Deadpool to fight Ajax with his bare hands. However, Ajax proves to be much stronger, overpowering Deadpool, stabbing him in the head with a knife and repeatedly attacking him. Vanessa comes from behind and stabs Ajax with the sword. At this moment, Deadpool collapses, experiencing hallucinations. Suddenly, Ajax gets up, grabs Vanessa, and throws her away. Deadpool regains consciousness, removes the knife from his head, and attacks Ajax. Meanwhile, Colossus struggles against Angel, so Negasonic uses her power to defend him, causing a massive explosion that destroys the entire place. Vanessa almost falls off the building, but Deadpool quickly saves her, placing her inside the capsule and sealing it. Colossus then takes Angel and Negasonic and escapes the area before it collapses. The place is destroyed, but Vanessa remains safe inside the capsule. Negasonic helps her out. During this time, Deadpool is still fighting Ajax, managing to break his arms and threatening to kill him unless he restores his original appearance. Ajax reveals that it was all a lie and that there's no way to return Deadpool to his original look. Enraged, Deadpool decides to kill Ajax. Colossus arrives and tries to stop Deadpool, urging him to show mercy and be a hero for once, but Deadpool doesn't listen and kills Ajax. Vanessa then hits Deadpool for leaving her and disappearing, but he explains that everything that happened was beyond his control because he was afraid of her reaction to his appearance. When she removes his mask and sees his face, she is shocked, but tells him that his appearance doesn't matter and that she will get used to it and love him as he is. At this moment, Colossus and Negasonic return to their base after telling Deadpool they won't leave him until he joins their team. This concludes the first part of the Deadpool movie. If you enjoyed the movie, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello to all Cinemaster lovers. Hope you enjoy watching. Let's get started. The movie begins on a mountain road in China. There is a woman standing, needing someone to help her. It's clear that her car broke down on the road. A large vehicle stops, and the driver eagerly offers to help, but the woman ignores him because he looks suspicious. Shortly after, a respectable-looking man in a car passes by. The woman quickly gets in with him. Unfortunately, it turns out that this was the worst decision of her life. Suddenly, she notices a severed human hand next to the seat, indicating that the man with the innocent face is actually a deranged killer. After a while, the man stops the car and starts talking to the bus driver, Tony. He tells him that a woman disappeared a few days ago in that exact area. At the same time, a radio announcement reports a serious accident on a nearby road, causing all routes to be blocked. One of the passengers, named Lee, insists he must get to work on time. Tony suggests taking an abandoned road as a shortcut. No one objects to the decision. Thus begins the ill-fated journey. As they drive, they pass through a dark tunnel. Tony is surprised because he has never seen this tunnel before. Despite this, he continues driving, but suddenly, he encounters a strange man standing in the middle of the tunnel. This forces him to stop the bus. Everyone is terrified and confused about what this man is doing standing in the dark tunnel. However, he boards the bus with them. Lee, who is sitting and reading a newspaper, discovers that the mysterious man is a wanted criminal. He hides a knife to protect himself. There are two women on the bus, Sarah, an aspiring model, and Jiang, who is pregnant. As for the children, there are twins, Bark and Fang. Fang's brother appears to have autism, but his sister is always there to take care of him. After 20 minutes, the bus is still inside the tunnel. Tony begins to suspect something is wrong. He knows that the longest tunnel in the city is about 11 kilometers and shouldn't take more than 10 minutes to cross. He decides to turn around and go back the way they came. However, the strangest thing happens. Even after 30 minutes of driving at full speed, the entrance is nowhere to be found. The tunnel is dark, endless, and devoid of any other signs of life. Terrified, Tony stops the bus, and all the passengers get off to figure out what's happening. Strangely, Jiang, the pregnant woman, finds her phone, which she accidentally dropped an hour ago at the tunnel entrance. This confirms that the tunnel is not ordinary. Everyone begins to panic. Lee takes charge and asks them to stay calm. He decides to walk for hours to find help. To avoid getting lost in the tunnel, he thinks of taking a long rope to guide his movements. Lee holds one end of the rope while the insurance agent Wang holds the other end. Luckily, the pregnant woman has a lot of yarn she was working with. Before Lee leaves, the strange man who stopped the bus earlier asks to join him. Lee reluctantly agrees. As they walk, they get to know each other. The strange man introduces himself as Chen, but doesn't talk about his job or family. After a while, fog spreads around them. The passengers see two figures approaching them from the mist. They are terrified and prepare to confront them, but they are shocked to discover that the figures are Lee and Chen. How did this happen? In the end, they return to the starting point, the same place they began. This makes the situation even stranger. Wang, still holding the end of the rope, is suddenly pulled when Chen tugs on the other end, even though they are standing right next to each other. The tunnel is straight, but it keeps bringing people back to the same spot, as if it's an endless loop. When they realize they are trapped, Lee suggests gathering anything edible to ration wisely. The four men move to explore the area, while the three women and the autistic boy stay on the bus to rest. 30 minutes pass, but when Jiang wakes up, she finds the bus covered in dust. Shocked, she wakes the others, and they quickly get off. At the same time, the men return and find the bus in terrible condition. Tony immediately checks the food supplies, but discovers that everything has spoiled. This means the tunnel is not just endless, but time also moves differently inside it. 1 hour in the outside world equals about a week inside the tunnel. When they return to the bus, they find a map of the entire tunnel, as if someone had silently placed it there and left. Lee concludes that someone is playing a cruel game with them and accepts the challenge. He spreads the map on a table and begins analyzing the place. Suddenly, the lights go out. When they come back on, Lee is missing, and a trail of blood is found in his place. Cautiously, they follow the trail. Now that Lee has been abducted or perhaps even killed, the mysterious man Chen decides to take responsibility for the group. The blood trail leads them to a hollowed-out area. When they break into it, they find a strange room filled with pictures of many people and numerous severed hands. More importantly, they find a blueprint of the area. It reveals that there are 6 separate tunnels, each leading to another. Chen deduces that to escape, they must pass through all 6 tunnels. He also guesses that this secret room contains the entrance to the second tunnel. As they search the room, they find a calendar with the date July 15th. Chen realizes this is a clue. When he tears the calendar off the wall, he discovers a hidden wooden door. After they pass through it, the television in the room turns on by itself, showing a woman trapped inside a small cave. The group enters the second tunnel, only to find their bus parked at the exact same spot. They are baffled as to how they return to the starting point again. Upon closer inspection, they realize the tunnel is identical but exists in a different time. The group quickly boards the bus, now wrapped in barbed wire. They search for food and find a box of noodles. At this point, the driver, Tony, becomes aggressive and greedy. He finds a gun under one of the seats and threatens the others to give him all the food. Fearing for their lives, they reluctantly comply. However, because time moves so quickly, everyone feels hungry all the time. The group gradually becomes animalistic. Meanwhile, Wang sneaks away and takes a box of noodles for himself. When Tony notices, he beats him severely, but before he can finish him off, someone stabs Tony from behind. After a while, the rest of the group arrives at the scene of the incident and are shocked when they see the murder crime. Despite this, Wang doesn't care and starts looking for the food box he dropped. When he went under the bus, he found an opening. The group pushed the bus and entered the inspection hole, which eventually led them to another mysterious room, also filled with strange pictures and severed human parts. Not only that, but it also appeared on the television that the woman seen earlier was slowly escaping inside the cave. Away from all this, the group searches for a way out. They find the same result here again. When they remove it, they find another secret door behind it. They quickly enter and eventually reach the third tunnel. They are surprised that this tunnel is wetter and darker than the previous one. The bus is here too, but it's filled with rats and snakes. They are very hungry. Here, Wang is forced to eat spoiled noodles, which he immediately regrets. When Jing sees him in this state, she feels sorry for him and gives him a biscuit, but Wang becomes very aggressive and demands the whole pack from her. When she refuses, he suddenly pulls a gun from his pocket and steals all the food at gunpoint. But then his madness escalates when he deduces that they find a secret passage every time one of them dies. For example, they found the wall when Liat was kidnapped and the inspection hole when Tony was stabbed. Here, he threatens to shoot one of the remaining survivors to ensure his escape from this place. Chim tries to calm him down, but Wang doesn't listen to him. Instead, he forces the innocent Jing to shoot Chim multiple times. Afterward, the madman takes the axe from the room next to them and starts attacking them. When Fang tries to save her brother, the poor autistic boy, Park, cries as he watches his sister take her last breaths. Wang, who is out of control, tries to strangle Sarah, but before he finishes her off, someone hits him from behind. Now, with 2 more people dead, the group finds another secret passage that leads them to the 4th tunnel, which contains a drug. Afterward, Jing starts giving birth, and Park sits beside her, while the injured Chen and Sarah go to inspect the bus. Because of the drug in the area, Sarah starts hallucinating and sees people around her. Frightened, she leaves the bus, runs in the opposite direction, and finds many corpses scattered everywhere. There, she sees a mirror. She looks into it and sees someone approaching her from behind. In the end, she is also killed. At this point, Chen returns to the group, who are behind the child that was born. The 3 survivors continue forward, but along the way they discover that the baby has died. Chen tries to convince Jing to keep going, but she then pulls out a knife and stabs him to death. Strangely, after a while, he wakes up in a secret compound, appearing as if he is awakened from a certain experiment. Afterward, we are taken to a highly classified military meeting, where everything is finally revealed. A general in the army discloses that the serial killer who appeared at the beginning of the film, named James, was captured. The problem is that they caught him in a crashed car and he was completely unconscious. Now, he is in a coma. James kidnapped and killed many women, but there are reports that one of them, named Sarah, is still alive. The problem is that no one knows where she is being held except for the serial killer himself. And since he is in a coma, they can't interrogate him. Thus, the military decided to collaborate with the state's Brain Research Institute. Their plan is to perform a memory transfer with James to access his subconscious mind and discover the victim's location. Yesterday, a skilled psychologist from the institute finally infiltrated James's mind and found certain clues. We learned that the psychologist is actually Chen, one of the army generals. He confirmed that they must trust Chen because, above all, he is concerned about the victim's safety. It turns out that the victim, Sarah, is Chen's wife. Here, events start making more sense. Everything we saw earlier took place inside James's subconscious mind, but Chen's mission is not over yet. During yesterday's experiment, he was able to find the first clue from the note pinned to the wall that his wife is being held somewhere near the Xian River. However, the situation is critical due to the heavy rain. Within the next 36 hours, all the caves along the riverbanks will be completely submerged due to the rising river levels, putting Sarah's life in danger. That's why Chen needs to delve into James's mind again tomorrow to find more clues about Sarah's exact location. That night, Chen was sitting alone. The general approached him and asked how things went. Here, Chen shared his experience inside James's mind. He recalls the date he saw on the note, July 15th, 1996. The general explains that this date is the same day the serial killer's father and mother died. On that fateful day, his father discovered that his mother was having an affair with their driver. A big fight broke out between them, and in the end, his mother stabbed his father before doing something unimaginable to herself. Chen was shocked by this revelation, but he continued talking about his experience. He said that in James's inner world, he was able to see both the dark and good sides of him. But in the end, the good side failed. The serial killer was, in fact, a tunnel engineer. That's why, when he fell into a coma, he started creating a tunnel in his mind as a symbol of his confused psyche. The tunnel in his consciousness is merely a dead-end loop that leads nowhere. When Chen entered James's mind, his primary goal was to get him out of this infinite loop so that James could wake up from his coma. But he didn't expect to find all these separate personalities within him. Thus, Chen had to interact with all of them to find clues about his wife's imprisonment. His new mission became to identify the real criminal among these personalities and interrogate them to discover the location. As he dealt with these personalities, he uncovered many things about them. The best personality for him, which represented James's healthy and rational side, offered hope that the good side could overcome the others and bring James out of the loop. But unfortunately, it suddenly disappeared after the lights in the tunnel went out. The disappearance of this personality caused great confusion. The second personality was Tony, the driver, who became violent in the end, reflecting James's aggressive nature. The third and fourth were Wang and Sarah, whom James's mind represented as his father and mother. His father was an insurance employee, while his mother was a model. Sadly, when the father treated James harshly, his mother didn't care much for him and was also involved with their driver. This was symbolized, of course, when Sarah asked the driver Tony for food. The fifth personality was the pregnant woman Jing, representing his idealized image of a mother. Although she is a good person, she couldn't handle his dark side at all, which is why she also transformed. The sixth and seventh personalities are the twins, who resemble his childhood personality, autism, alienation, and femininity. But they are extremely skilled in mathematics and astrophysics. However, there is another personality that wasn't on the bus. This is the most violent personality, always hidden in the dark. It is this personality that killed Lee and the driver Tony Wong in secret. But to learn more information, Tim needs to delve into the darkness. It is this personality that killed Lee and the driver Tony Wong in secret. But to learn more information, Chim needs to undergo another experiment. The next day comes, and Chim undergoes the second phase of memory transfer. This time, he confronts James directly and asks him where his wife is. But the serial killer isn't willing to give up the information so easily. He doesn't answer his question, instead talking about his hatred for his mother when she killed his father, and how his sense of insecurity towards women is the reason he kidnaps and kills them. At this point, Chim takes different fragments of his subconscious, going to various other events in his life. Chim focuses on his mission, ignoring all distractions, and approaches the autistic personality, the weakest of James's personalities. He tries to manipulate the boy to find out the exact location of his wife, but his twin sister, Fangi, stops him. Afterward, Chim transitions to a cinema hall, where he confronts the true evil behind all the murders inside the tunnel. It turns out to be Chim himself. It's revealed that James's subconscious is so corrupted and evil that anyone who looks into it starts thinking like a serial killer. Evil Chim reveals that he doesn't want to save Sarah, which is why he killed people in the tunnel one by one, including the newborn. Suddenly, Park, the autistic boy, appears on stage, terrified. Sarah, Chim's wife, is also there. Park approaches Sarah slowly to kill her, but he hesitates at the last moment. The real Chim seizes the opportunity, approaching the frightened boy and urging him to wake up and inform the authorities about Sarah's location. Surprisingly, Park agrees, but not immediately. Afterward, Evil Chim takes him to a different place, where the two prepare for a final confrontation. The two begin to fight each other, but just when the real Chim feels he has finally won, another version of Evil Chim appears, indicating that he will never be destroyed. Elsewhere, the rain intensifies, and the water rises to nearly submerge Sarah. Time is running out, and she has only a few moments before she drowns. Returning to James's subconscious, the real Chim pleads with him to return to his consciousness, but the evil doppelganger refuses to listen. At this point, the real Chim devises a plan. He thinks that if he does something unexpected, Evil Chim will die, and all the evil within James will disappear. As soon as he executes his plan, Evil Chim fades away and vanishes. In the hospital, James wakes up, completely changed, after the evil was purged from within him. He immediately informs the authorities about Sarah's location, and they rescue her just in time. However, Chim doesn't wake up. The film ends with him walking through the infinite tunnel, indicating that he will never return. If you enjoyed the film, don't forget to like and subscribe to help the channel grow and bring you more content.
Welcome to Plot Twist, your place for quick summaries of movies with jaw-dropping twists. Let's dive in. The story begins with Bruce, a doctor and scientist who is subjected to an experiment where he is injected with a substance. However, he transforms into a massive monster, becomes extremely angry, destroys the laboratory and everyone in it, and escapes. After this incident, Bruce disappears, and after some time, we see him in Brazil, where he is learning the local language. Later, he leaves and goes to a martial arts trainer to learn how to control his anger, because when he transforms into a monster, he becomes extremely furious and loses awareness. He does not want to transform. After completing his training, he goes to work at a food packaging factory. While working, a machine in the factory malfunctions, and his manager calls him to fix it. Bruce goes to repair it, but he gets injured, and a drop of his blood falls into a bottle, mixing with another bottle without anyone noticing. Later, he sees a man harassing his female colleague at the factory, so Bruce intervenes, stops the situation, and walks away with her. After that, he visits someone and takes a specific flower from them before returning home to conduct research on it. He extracts a sample from the flower, injures himself, and mixes his blood with the sample to test it, hoping to cure himself of his transformations. However, the experiment fails. Bruce then contacts another scientist in America named Samuel, who helps him conduct extensive research to find a cure. Bruce uses a fake identity to avoid being discovered. Samuel informs him that the experiment failed but assures him they will try again. Meanwhile, a man drinks from the bottle that contained Bruce's blood and falls unconscious. The military is alerted to the situation and informs General Ross that they found gamma radiation in the man's body. Realizing it is the same radiation in Bruce's body, the general begins an investigation and traces the contaminated shipment back to a factory in Brazil. He orders his forces to prepare immediately to capture Bruce. The military assembles a team led by Blonsky, a secret agent, and they travel to Brazil. During the flight, the general explains Bruce's case, stating that he stole highly classified military files and must be captured alive using tranquilizers, not real bullets. The forces arrive at Bruce's residence, but he is not there. He has escaped and is hiding with a female colleague. After the soldiers leave, Bruce returns to the streets to flee but encounters Blonsky, who chases him. While escaping, Bruce runs into the man who harassed his colleague earlier and gets into a fight with him. Bruce manages to defeat him and his companions and continues running. Bruce seeks refuge in the factory where he works, but the soldiers attack him again. They beat him, and he warns them not to make him angry. However, they mock him and continue attacking. Enraged, Bruce transforms into the Hulk and starts fighting them. The soldiers fire at him, but bullets have no effect. He destroys the facility and escapes. Later, the military finds a picture of Betty in Bruce's home and informs the general that she is in contact with him in America. She turns out to be the general's daughter. Blonsky tells the general that they almost captured Bruce, but a monster suddenly appeared, destroyed everything, and escaped. The general reveals that the monster is actually Bruce, who was subjected to an experiment that turned him into this creature. Blonsky is shocked by this revelation. Meanwhile, Bruce is seen near a waterfall, returning to his normal form. He walks to the road, stops a car, and asks the driver for a ride, explaining that he has no money. The driver agrees to take him. The military and the general return to America, having failed to capture Bruce. Blonsky insists on leading the mission again, but this time with better preparation, stronger forces, and advanced weapons. The general agrees. Bruce, now exhausted, goes to buy clothes from a market. The general explains to Blonsky that they were conducting experiments to create super soldiers for the military and that Bruce was unknowingly subjected to one of these experiments, which went wrong, turning him into a monster they could not control. Bruce disguises himself and visits Betty at her university, but he hesitates to approach her. He sees her with another man, who takes her away. Later that night, Bruce finally meets Betty. The moment she sees him, she hugs him joyfully and takes him to her home. He tells her that he wants to understand what the general was trying to do and the purpose of the experiment conducted on him. She explains that they were trying to create a weapon for the military and that Bruce was used as a test subject without his knowledge. Meanwhile, the general injects Blonsky with a serum similar to Bruce's to enhance his abilities so he can fight him. The next day, Bruce prepares to leave and Betty accompanies him to say goodbye. Suddenly, a large military force ambushes them. Bruce immediately runs and the soldiers chase him. He enters a building to hide, but they continue pursuing him. He has taken all the research files related to the serum and stored them on a flash drive, which he swallows to prevent anyone from obtaining it. Betty confronts her father, the general, begging him to let Bruce go, insisting that he won't harm anyone. However, the general argues that Bruce cannot control himself and must be stopped before he hurts someone. Bruce is cornered on a bridge, and the soldiers fire tear gas at him. Enraged, he transforms into the Hulk, destroys the bridge, and leaps off. The soldiers continue shooting at him, but this only makes him angrier. He demolishes their vehicles and starts attacking them. Blonsky fires at Hulk, but it has no effect. Hulk charges at him, and the military deploys high-frequency sonic weapons against him. However, Hulk destroys the devices. Blonsky confronts him again, provoking him, and Hulk strikes him, sending him flying. A military helicopter arrives and opens fire on Hulk, but he manages to destroy it. Betty is caught in the explosion, but Hulk shields her, saving her from harm. She loses consciousness. Seeing Hulk protect Betty, the general is surprised that he is still aware of his actions. Hulk then takes Betty and escapes to a remote mountainous area. Later, as a thunderstorm approaches, Hulk becomes agitated, mistaking the thunder for an attack. He signals Betty to stay away, but she calms him down, reassuring him that it is just thunder. Meanwhile, Blonsky, who was severely injured, wakes up in the hospital, recovering quickly due to the serum he received. Bruce, on the other hand, is deeply saddened by everything that has happened, and she prefers her home to feel reassured there, and then takes him back to the house by hand so no one knows his location. Bruce manages to retrieve the flash drive he swallowed, which contains all the information about the serum he was subjected to. The media begins talking about Hulk, the destruction he caused, and their lack of understanding of what this creature is. We return to Blonsky, who has recovered very quickly, surprising the general that the serum worked. He tells him, "I'm ready now." Afterward, the military starts identifying everyone Bruce had been in contact with, including Betty and another person named Samuel. They locate Samuel. Betty continues to talk to Bruce, asking him what he sees when he transforms into Hulk. He tells her he only remembers a few events but doesn't recall everything that happened. He expresses his desire to cure himself as quickly as possible and return to his normal life. Later, the general takes Blonsky to inject him with another dose of the serum, so he becomes even stronger and can face Bruce. Bruce and Betty go to Dr. Samuel, the person Bruce had been in contact with from Brazil, to try to find a cure to rid him of the gamma radiation. Samuel tells him that he has tried many treatments, but the radiation always returns. He mentions trying something new this time. Meanwhile, the forces prepare to confront Bruce. They board the plane and head to the location. At the same time, Samuel prepares the new experiment he plans to conduct on Bruce. They restrain him and inject him with the source, but he becomes very agitated and transforms into Hulk. However, he calms down again, and they realize the experiment succeeded, but only temporarily, not permanently. Meanwhile, the military forces arrive in large numbers, surrounding Samuel's house. A sniper shoots Bruce with a tranquilizer dart, causing him to lose consciousness. They enter and capture him. Betty confronts the general, blaming him for what happened to Bruce and saying she doesn't want to see him again. She leaves him and walks away. During this, Blonsky sneaks behind the general to Samuel, threatening him and demanding the same serum Bruce took. Samuel warns him that he can't guarantee what will happen if he takes it and that he might turn into an even worse monster that they can't control. Blonsky becomes angry and threatens to kill him, forcing Samuel to comply. He begins the experiment, injecting Blonsky with the serum. Blonsky transforms into a strange, massive creature, killing Samuel, destroying the place, and escaping. He goes out into the streets, attacking everything around him. The soldiers are unable to stop him. They contact the general, informing him of what happened. The general is shocked to learn it's Blonsky. He informs Bruce and Betty about the situation. Bruce decides to return to the city. Blonsky enters the city, causing massive destruction. The police attempt to shoot him, but they can't stop him. He destroys all the cars in the streets. They fire an RPG at him, but it has no effect, only making him angrier. Bruce tells the general to let him face Blonsky, as he's the only one who can stop him. The general hesitates, fearing the city will be destroyed if Hulk confronts him. Bruce convinces him, arguing that many lives will be lost if no one stops Blonsky. The general agrees, and they open the plane hatch. Bruce bids Betty farewell and jumps out. He lands on the ground, transforming into Hulk and regaining consciousness. He charges at Blonsky, attacking him relentlessly. Blonsky fights back, throwing Hulk far away. Hulk becomes furious, grabbing a car and smashing it into Blonsky repeatedly. The battle intensifies, with both exchanging powerful blows. Blonsky attempts to escape, but the general orders the planes to fire at him and pursue him. Blonsky tries to jump onto the plane carrying the general and Betty. Bruce intervenes, grabbing Blonsky and causing the plane to lose balance and crash. The passengers survive, but Blonsky continues to fight Hulk. Blonsky picks up a chain, attacking Hulk with it. Hulk struggles to stand, but eventually grabs the chain, using it to choke Blonsky. He also stabs him in the shoulder with a metal object, subduing him. Hulk is about to kill Blonsky, but Betty pleads with him to stop. He listens to her, knocking Blonsky unconscious instead. The military and general arrive. Betty, distraught, apologizes to Bruce for everything that happened to him because of her father and herself, acknowledging that he lost his life because of them. Another plane arrives, and upon seeing it, Hulk flees. The military chases him but fails to capture him. Time passes, and Bruce isolates himself in a secluded place, away from people. He writes a letter to Betty with her necklace and sends it to her. Meanwhile, the general is at a bar drinking. Tony Stark approaches him, saying they are assembling a team of individuals with special abilities. The general asks, "Who are we?" And here the movie ends. Let us know in the comments which movies you'd like us to summarize.
Welcome to Recaply X, your movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists. In minutes, our movie starts, and we see America completely overrun by zombies, destroying all the places in the cities there. Then we see a couple in a car heading to Las Vegas to reach the airport there and escape with the others, who managed to flee before all the zombies arrived. But while driving, the wife asks her husband to stop the car because she wants to step out for 5 minutes. When she returns, he tries to start the car, but it won't move. They discover the tire is stuck in the ground. He tries to fix it but fails, so he gets out of the car to call for help, especially from the people who escaped with them. Unfortunately, no one responds. Meanwhile, his wife sees a zombie in the distance wearing a suit. The zombie starts moving toward them step by step. The husband rushes to grab the gun from the car and aims at the zombie. Unfortunately, the shots miss at first, but eventually, one hits the zombie in the chest, causing it to fall. However, the zombie gets back up and moves toward them again, and by then, the bullets are all gone. They rush back to the car, locking themselves inside just before the zombie reaches them. The zombie keeps trying to break the glass to get in but fails. The couple sits inside the car, trapped and unsure of what to do. Night falls, and the zombie is still trying, while they wait, hoping it will leave. After a while, they no longer see the zombie outside. The husband tells his wife he's an idiot because he dropped his phone outside the car. They grab a small flashlight and decide to step out to search for the phone. His wife finds it and celebrates. But before they can rejoice, the zombie sneaks up behind him and bites him on the neck. That's it for him. He's dead, and the zombie starts eating him. His wife quickly rushes back into the car, grabbing water, food, and anything else she might need. When she looks again, the zombie is no longer on the ground, and she fears it might be waiting for her. Suddenly, the zombie is inside the car, with her, ready to attack. After some struggle, she manages to escape through the other door and runs into the forest. She keeps running until morning, exhausted, and finds herself walking through the desert. The journey is long, but she pushes on. She sits down to check her supplies, finding only a little water and chocolate left. Despite this, she keeps moving. When night falls, she lights a fire and rests. Suddenly, the same suited zombie appears and attacks her, trying to bite her. After a long struggle, she manages to escape again, running until she collapses from exhaustion. She wakes up on a rock, with the zombie still trying to climb up to her but unable to reach. Thinking quickly, she realizes the zombie is drawn to her scent. She takes a tissue, rubs it on her forehead, and throws it far away. The zombie chases after the tissue, giving her a chance to climb down and escape. However, she falls during her descent. The noise alerts the zombie, which starts moving toward her slowly. She grabs her bag and runs as fast as she can. Later, we see her walking through the desert again, with the zombie still following her. Eventually, she reaches an abandoned house. She enters the house, finding no food, water, or even clean drinking water. However, she discovers a mattress and decides to rest for a while. She falls asleep, but wakes up to strange noises outside. Looking out, she sees the same suited zombie entering the house to search for her. Not knowing where to go, she hides in the bathroom. But the zombie, guided by her scent, finds her. She tries to stay silent to avoid being eaten, staying as still as possible, even as a scorpion crawls across her face. Eventually, the zombie gives up and leaves. She removes the scorpion and quickly exits the house. She walks through the desert for hours, now down to her last bottle of water and nearly out of food. She keeps walking and tries to use her phone, but finds no signal. Suddenly, the suited zombie appears in front of her again. She decides to throw things at it, but nothing affects it. Frustrated, she remembers that bullets didn't work either. She runs away, with the zombie slowly following her. She mocks the zombie for being so slow. Reaching a high rock, she sits and watches the zombie struggle to climb up, calling it stupid. However, the desert is vast, and there's no sign of a city anywhere nearby. She realizes she might die out here. She moves on, with only a small amount of water and chocolate left. Eventually, she reaches a hill and sees a city in the distance. Before she can celebrate, a massive storm approaches her. She tries to escape, but the storm overtakes her, knocking her down. Just before she loses consciousness, she sees the zombie approaching her. She pushes it away multiple times before managing to escape again. She tries to flee from the storm, but it overpowers her, knocking her out once more. She wakes up in the desert, miraculously still alive and uneaten. She sees a car passing by and screams for help. The car stops, and two young men get out to assist her, giving her water. She tells them about her journey to the airport and what happened to her husband. She also mentions losing her bag during the storm. The men promise to retrieve her bag while she rests in the car and charges her phone. While in the car, she notices a picture of a child and realizes the car doesn't belong to the two men. She looks at the back seat and finds prison uniforms, realizing they are escaped convicts. Terrified, she tries to stay calm. The men return with her bag, and she thanks them. They ask where she's headed, but she tries to mislead them. Suddenly, they attack her, dragging her out of the car and holding a knife to her face. They threaten to kill her if she doesn't tell them where the airport is, revealing they killed the car's original owner. They throw her into the car trunk, but the suited zombie is still wandering the desert. The zombie approaches the car, and one of the men sees it but doesn't warn his partner in time. The zombie attacks, biting one of the men on the neck and eating him alive. The other man panics, jumps into the car, and drives off, leaving the woman behind. She finds the trunk they threw out, which contains food, water, and a small raft. She decides to take everything and continue her journey before the zombie finishes eating and turns its attention to her. The food and water are placed in the boat, and she moves with them until she finds the zombie walking behind her. She finds a tire in the desert and thinks that its owner must help her. We see her hanging the tire around its neck to slow it down, and the boat is also pulling it. She starts talking to it about her life, saying she had a son, but left him with her sister because she wanted to live her life. She admits she's regretful about what she did, and tells it she still remembers the game they used to play together. She begins crying until she reaches a certain place and decides to tie it to a rock and leave it. She actually does this, but before leaving, she feels sorry for the zombie and returns to it. She decides to give it instructions not to harm her if she unties it. She unties it, but the zombie tries to attack her afterward. She yells at it, and suddenly the zombie stops and begins to obey her commands. Later at night, she talks to it and tells it about her son, how she used to play with him, and how regretful she is about the situation. From a distance, she sees military vehicles approaching. Knowing they'd kill the zombie if they saw it, she hides with it near the road until all the vehicles pass. However, one vehicle notices them, and soldiers get out to kill the zombie. She tells the zombie not to move or make a sound and goes out to talk to the soldiers. She explains she's heading to the airport to meet her husband and makes up a story to convince them. Just as they're about to leave, the zombie appears in front of them. They try to shoot it, but she stands in their way and begs them not to kill it. They understand that the zombie is her husband and decide to leave. However, one soldier shoots the zombie in the leg before leaving, causing it to fall and scream in pain. When she tries to help it, the zombie suddenly bites her finger. She quickly runs to her bag to get disinfectant, but realizes the infection is spreading through her hand and will soon reach her whole body. She places her hand on a rock, grabs another rock, and smashes her hand until she cuts it off. Despite the pain, she goes back to the zombie to scold it, but seeing it in pain makes her feel even sorrier for it. She decides not to leave it and continues her journey with it. After some time, she sees the airport in the distance. She wakes the zombie, which signals with its eyes toward its pocket. She finds an ID card from when it was still human and sees a picture of its girlfriend, Lima, who is likely dead. From its gestures, she understands it wants to end its suffering. After much thought, she decides to put it out of its misery. She picks up a large rock, gives it one last look, and then kills it. She finally reaches the airport but finds no one there. She finds a car and waits beside it until she hears gunfire. She hides in the car and shouts to them that she's still human. The shooter turns out to be Jimmy, who explains that he encountered zombies on his way, and his friends turned into zombies, so he had to kill them. He ties her up and prepares to leave her to die, but eventually takes her to a plane with his friend to escape. They manage to repair the plane and fly off, planning to head to Mexico to escape the zombies. She decides to stay behind to check on her sister and son. She enters a room and tries to call them, but all the calls fail. Finally, she tries. a different number, and her son answers. He tells her what happened, saying his aunt disappeared and he has been hiding in his room for days. She reassures him and promises to come and save him. She rushes to the car, now with a new purpose for living, but discovers the keys are missing. She decides to re-enter the airport to search for the keys, armed with a wrench for protection. Inside, she searches the pockets of the first body she finds but finds nothing. As she walks, a zombie appears and tries to attack her. She uses the wrench to kill it and searches its clothes but finds nothing. She then enters another room, where a zombie with its back turned suddenly attacks her. Startled, she falls, dropping the wrench. The zombie attacks, but she fights back and finds a drill nearby, which she uses to kill the zombie. After searching its clothes, she finally finds the keys. She takes them, starts the car, and drives quickly to find her son. On the way, she remembers the zombie that helped her on her journey and feels sad for killing it, but continues her path. She reaches Las Vegas and finds the city destroyed and devoid of people. She takes a crowbar for protection and enters her sister's house, finding it destroyed and her sister's husband dead in the kitchen. It seems the family is gone. She finds a blood-written message on the glass from her sister, explaining that she was bitten and decided to burn herself before turning into a zombie. She mourns her sister deeply, but continues searching for her son. She enters his room, but doesn't find him, only his toy, which she hugs while crying. Suddenly, she hears footsteps outside. Armed, she moves cautiously, but finds her son hiding in another room. She hugs him and prepares to escape quickly. However, as they descend the stairs, they find a large group of zombies trying to break down the door to enter, but she tells her son not to be afraid, and she started killing the zombies one after one. Our movie and story end here. See you in another movie and a new tale.
Welcome to Cinepro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. Our movie begins with Rose, who works as an assistant to a renowned fashion designer named Gunther. That day, Rose arrives late to work, and Gunther embarrasses her in front of her colleagues. Rose explains her situation, saying she almost had a major accident on the way, but Gunther remains indifferent, showing that he is a very strict person who prioritizes work and punctuality above all else. He embarrasses her multiple times, making everyone laugh at her expense. Later, we learn that Rose's family passed away a long time ago, and Chelsea's family adopted her, which is why Rose and Chelsea are very close, like sisters. After the meeting, Rose is surprised when her colleague Ayad approaches her. We find out that Ayad works as a photographer at the same place and invites Rose to attend a party with him that night. The party is a regular event Gunther organizes at the end of every month. Initially, Rose completely refuses because she doesn't like parties. However, she eventually agrees when she sees Ayad's insistence. We discover that Rose suffers from low self-esteem and considers herself less beautiful than other girls her age. She is puzzled by Ayad's determination to go out with her, yet she feels happy because she has secretly admired him for a long time but has never been able to express her feelings. Chelsea is thrilled when she learns they are going to the party together and helps Rose choose the right dress. It turns out that Chelsea used to work as a model, while Rose assisted Gunther with designs. At night, Rose arrives at the party and talks about how it was her dream to become a photojournalist, but the job is not financially rewarding, forcing her to take on other work. Rose, on the other hand, expresses her desire to become a successful fashion designer. She believes that clothing and fashion can completely transform a person's identity and give them confidence. Ayad admires her perspective and suggests she share it with Gunther, but Rose refuses outright. It becomes clear that she tries to avoid Gunther's gaze throughout the day. When Ayad asks her why, she reveals that she stole the dress she is wearing, which is one of Gunther's designs, to attend the party. A while later, Rose leaves to go to the bathroom, where she overhears two girls talking about her. One of them says that Chelsea asked Ayad to take Rose out because she feels sorry for her due to her lack of confidence and feelings of loneliness. Rose becomes devastated, and upon leaving the bathroom, confronts Chelsea angrily. Chelsea admits she did it with good intentions, but Rose is upset by the pity and decides to leave the party. Though Chelsea tries to stop her, Rose takes a motorcycle and drives off. Distracted, she gets into a major accident. A week later, Rose wakes up in the hospital, revealing that the accident caused severe injuries all over her body and left her in a coma. Chelsea stayed by her side the entire time, deeply worried about her. The doctor assures Rose that her condition is stable. He explains the bandages on her face, stating that she suffered injuries to her jaw and lost significant portions of her facial skin. They had to close the wounds with wires, meaning she will need reconstructive surgery. He also mentions that she sustained stomach injuries, resulting in a large scar in that area, and will have to follow a specific diet suitable for her condition. Despite the difficult situation, Rose insists on seeing her face. It becomes evident that the injury is severe, covering a large portion of her face, leaving her unable to speak. She has to write on paper if she needs something. Rose breaks down in tears, feeling like her life is falling apart. Gunther tries to comfort her, assuring her that he won't leave her side until she fully recovers. Rose is shocked to learn she has been fired from her job. Chelsea decides to take Rose to live with her until she finds another job. After weeks, Rose is discharged from the hospital and Chelsea takes her home. Chelsea prepares all of Rose's favorite foods and tells her that Ayad frequently asks about her. He even helped Chelsea move Rose's belongings from her apartment to Chelsea's place. Rose starts preparing her own meals but finds she can only eat through a feeding tube. While checking her email, she finds a message from Ayad, who wants to check on her, but she ignores it, still unable to forgive him for what happened at the party. Later, Rose receives an email from a cosmetic clinic offering to treat her. She reads about the place and learns they operate based on a theory called post-humanism, which posits that the human species can evolve beyond the limits of the mind and body. The Food and Drug Administration, FDA, has completely rejected this theory, which is why the clinic operates secretly in exchange for experimenting. On patients, they offer lifetime health insurance for them and their families. Rose decides to visit the clinic, which is run by Dr. William. He examines Rose and informs her that she is an ideal candidate for their program. The clinic was established specifically for cases like hers. Dr. William explains that they will perform an experimental procedure using stem cells. Rose hesitates, saying she can't afford the operation, but William reassures her that they won't charge her. In exchange, she must allow them to experiment on her. Rose is shocked to learn that she will be one of the first people to undergo this procedure, essentially making her a test subject. Despite her reservations, Rose agrees because she has no other options. She can't afford reconstructive surgery elsewhere, nor can she face society in her current state. The day of the surgery arrives, and the doctors and nurses wear strange outfits, even covering their faces, as if the procedure poses a risk to them. They implant a foreign object into Rose's cheek. A while later, Ayad visits Rose in the hospital. She has not yet woken up from the surgery. He checks on her and leaves. As he exits, Dr. William stops him and asks to speak with him in his office, but nothing further is revealed. Later, Rose wakes up, and the bandages are removed from her face. She's shocked by the transformation in her appearance. The scars from the accident have completely disappeared, and her facial features are more beautiful than before. She is overjoyed to see that even the surgical scar has vanished, but she begins to feel intense pain in her stomach. At that moment, Rose hears a sound coming from the building's swimming pool area. When she goes to investigate, she finds a famous actor named Dom and learns he is being treated in the same place. And as soon as he tries to get close to her, he starts bleeding from his mouth. Rose gets scared, feeling like she is the cause, and runs to her room. The next day, William visits to check on her, and Rose tells him what happened with Dom. But William reassures her and convinces her that everything she saw in her dream has meaning. He allows her to go out since her condition has stabilized, on the condition that she doesn't miss her follow-up appointment. He gives her specific medication, mentioning that it has side effects and that if she feels tired, she should rest. The medication might also cause her to have hallucinations that are difficult to distinguish from reality. He also provides her with a specific drink to help with digestion. While out, she meets Chelsea for the first time since the surgery. Chelsea is shocked by the significant change and is happy that Rose will return to her normal life. One day, Chelsea leaves for work, and Rose, feeling bored, decides to occupy herself by drawing designs. She recalls Gunther's advice from when she first started working and adheres to it. While working, she's surprised by Ayad's visit. He's amazed by her new appearance and initially apologizes for what happened at the party. He then asks her out for dinner, but she refuses. He tries to schedule another meeting, but Rose lies, saying she is busy. It becomes clear that she has been avoiding him since the party. She takes the flowers from his hand and shuts the door. At night, the two girls return to the same place where the party was held. They encounter Gunther, who is leaving the venue. Upon seeing her and her designs, Gunther confirms that she is talented and decides to return to work. This excites the two girls, and they decide to celebrate. During the celebration, Rose is surprised that the young men are the ones trying to approach them, unlike before. However, when she gets close to one of them, she's startled by her own behavior and begins to act strangely, injuring the man as if she were a ferocious beast. Fortunately, no one notices. Rose later wakes up in her room and assumes it was one of the hallucinations caused by the medication. She tries to calm herself down and then drinks the beverage for breakfast, finding that she enjoys it. At this point, we see Dom on a film set. That day, he suffers from a fever and gets into a fight with someone, during which Dom attacks and bites the person in a horrifying manner, tearing off part of his skin. The incident terrifies everyone on set, and they try to restrain Dom. At the same time, Rose experiences severe stomach pain, causing her to lose consciousness. When she regains consciousness, she feels completely fine but still hungry. She drinks the rest of the beverage, and while standing in front of the fridge, she notices a piece of raw meat. She's drawn to the sight of the blood on it and begins drinking the blood, enjoying it. When Rose realizes what she has done, she becomes terrified of herself and tries to call Chelsea, but Chelsea is at work and doesn't answer. Suddenly, Rose hears a commotion in the street. When she goes down to see what happened, she finds a young man harassing a girl. Rose pretends to be interested in him, and as soon as she gets into his car, she attacks and bites him. The next morning, Rose wakes up in her room, but this time she finds bloodstains on her bed. This confirms to her that it wasn't a hallucination. Rose is horrified and decides to meet with William. She tells him that every time she feels stomach pain, she begins to imagine harming people. William reassures her, saying it's all hallucinations and that the anesthesia affects one's appetite, causing people to crave foods they didn't like before. He suggests that this explains her newfound liking for drinking blood. Rose then returns to work, deciding to focus solely on her job and ignore everything else. That day, Gunther sees the designs she has been working on and is so impressed that he decides to include them in his new collection. He asks Rose to collaborate with him on designing the dresses, which excites and motivates her. Meanwhile, the person Dom bit undergoes cosmetic surgery on his face. However, as soon as he wakes up, he begins exhibiting symptoms similar to Dom's, behaving violently and biting a nurse. When the doctors try to restrain him, he bites them too. Due to the escalating situation, the Center for Disease Control is called in, and they diagnose the condition as rabies, which destroys the nervous system and drives the individual insane, making them a danger to themselves and others. Given the rapid and aggressive spread of the disease among patients, the hospital staff begins to feel threatened, deciding to immediately kill anyone who loses control to prevent further infections. The doctors explain that they must contain the situation before it spreads beyond the hospital, as it could become an uncontrollable epidemic. However, the chief doctor refuses to report the situation, fearing it would cause widespread panic among citizens. At the same time, Iyad visits Rose again and asks her out for the second time. This time, Rose agrees and begins to talk about her health condition, mentioning the hallucinations she has been experiencing but not going into detail. Iyad seems particularly interested in the specifics of her health condition and the complications of her surgery, which makes Rose suspicious. Suddenly, she feels unwell and goes to the bathroom, where she notices a strange creature in her mouth. Terrified, she decides to leave, but before she can, the man Rose had bitten in the car attacks the venue, seeking revenge. He bites several people, but Iyad manages to subdue him. During the commotion, Rose leaves the venue. The next morning, she wakes up at home again, unable to remember how she got there and unsure if it was a nightmare or reality. When she tries to contact William, he doesn't answer, so she leaves him a message describing what happened. Later, Rose goes to prepare breakfast but accidentally drops the bottle of the beverage. She is shocked to discover that the drink is actually blood. She decides to stop drinking it immediately. Meanwhile, preparations for the fashion show begin. On the second day, Rose meets Iyad for the first time since the incident and apologizes for leaving him. She explains that the medication makes her confused and unaware of her actions, to the point where she doesn't even remember how she got home. Iyad tells her that he was the one who took her home. Afterward, Gunther gathers all the models and announces that Chelsea will close the show wearing the dress designed by Rose. Both girls are thrilled, as this has been a long-time dream for them. However, The disease spirals out of control, prompting the declaration of a state of emergency. Citizens are advised to stay home and avoid contact with animals or humans exhibiting strange behavior. Despite the chaos, Gunther insists on proceeding with the fashion show at his institute. The fashion show begins, and Rose is surprised that Chelsea hasn't arrived. At that moment, she receives a call from William, who asks her to go to the clinic as soon as possible. Rose says she is currently occupied and cannot go, so she steps aside to try calling Chelsea. Chelsea eventually arrives and tells her colleagues that she doesn't have time. Meanwhile, two men notice her and start mocking her behavior while recording her. Suddenly, a strange creature emerges from Rose's body and bites one of them, causing him to fall to the ground and bleed. At that moment, Iyad arrives, hearing the commotion, and attacks the second man, deleting the video. He then takes off his jacket and tries to control the strange creature, successfully doing so as if he knows exactly how. He then injects Rose with a specific shot, carries her, and returns to the party. After a while, Rose regains consciousness, and Iyad wants to take her back to the clinic, but she refuses to leave before attending the fashion show. The show begins and goes well, but halfway through, Chelsea starts showing signs of transformation and begins attacking those present. Gunther also transforms. In a short time, the police arrive and kill all the infected, including Chelsea. Rose collapses in grief over her sister's death. Iyad forcibly takes her to the clinic, where they both talk to the doctor. Rose feels guilty and starts suspecting that what she is seeing is not hallucinations, but that she is the source of the global epidemic. William is pleased to learn that she hasn't eaten yet, so he locks her and Iyad in a room together and starts talking to them through the glass. It is revealed that Iyad had been working with William, who hired him to monitor Rose while she was outside the clinic. Iyad tries to defend himself, saying he did it because he didn't like her, but Rose doesn't believe him. William appears to be insane and throws a lot of blood on Iyad to tempt Rose into eating him, encouraging her to give in to her instincts. When she asks him what he has done, William begins explaining that he was working on an immortality experiment. He injected people with a specific substance to make them live forever, and the creature inside them would continuously evolve, ensuring their eternal survival. He believes his experiment is highly beneficial and that if applied to a small number of people, they could dominate the rest of humanity and other creatures while achieving immortality. He sees it as a worthy cause. At that moment, they are both shocked to find a strange creature in the room with them. It is part human and part terrifying monster. William reveals that it is his wife and that he failed to cure her cancer, so he donated her body for research until he found a way to keep her alive in this monstrous form. Suddenly, the creature emerges from Rose's body and attacks Iyad. Rose grabs a knife and separates the creature from him just as he is about to die. She then decides to take revenge on William by killing his wife, who is in the same room, and then kills herself. At that moment, an announcement is made that the epidemic has been contained and that anyone infected was euthanized, marking the end of the crisis. Soon, everything returns to normal. Later, William prepares a meal consisting of a raw meat piece and a glass of blood. He places it next to Rose and wakes her up. Rose is shocked to find that she is still alive, and even more horrified to realize that William's experiment succeeded on her. She can never die, no matter what she does. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification button so you never miss an updates.
The twists. In minutes, the movie Sweetheart begins with Jen waking up to find herself on an island. She discovers her friend Brad unconscious on the ground next to her. She rushes to him and finds a piece of coral lodged dangerously in his stomach. Jen screams for help, hoping someone else is on the island to assist them, but no one appears. She removes her life jacket, pulls Brad out of the water, and extracts the coral from his stomach, trying to stop his bleeding. Jen ventures into the island's forest to search for anything that could help Brad. She finds a coconut, breaks it open, and returns to give Brad coconut water, but sadly, she discovers that he has died. Devastated, Jen realizes she's alone on the island. She explores the area, only to find herself walking in circles and returning to Brad's body. she decides to go back into the forest and stumbles upon a bag hanging from a tree and a cooler with drinks. She calls out, suspecting someone might be on the island, but no one responds. Opening the bag, Jen finds medicine dated back to 1994 and understands that the last people on the island were there decades ago. She also finds a box containing matches, papers, and other items, as well as another bag with personal belongings, children's toys, a car radio, a book, a teddy bear, and a small metal box. She returns to the beach and hears a strange noise coming from an open tree branch. Inside, she finds a bird. Gathering leaves, she covers Brad's body and shelters herself under leaves during a violent storm that night. The next day, Jen finds fish washed ashore and collects them to eat. Among them, she finds a small shark split in half with large wounds, leaving her wondering what could have caused it. Later, she attempts to clean the fish using a stone she fashioned into a knife, but becomes frustrated and abandons the task. She retrieves the cooler and her bag, only to find her journal ruined by water. Reflecting on her photos with her boyfriend, she grows emotional. While exploring the forest, Jen discovers a new area with graves for 3 people. Frightened, she quickly returns to the beach. Noticing Brad's body emitting a smell, she drags it near the forest, digs a grave, buries him, and marks the spot with wood. That night, she uses the matches to light a fire, grills fish, eats, and sleeps. The following day, she searches the island for more food or resources. When she revisits Brad's grave, she is shocked to find his body missing and signs of it being dragged away. Alarmed, Jen creates a spear for protection. She spends the rest of the day on high alert, scanning the island for threats. Exhausted, she eventually falls asleep, clutching her spear. The next morning, Jen spots something far out in the water and swims to investigate. She discovers a bag and a bucket, hoping to find useful items. While swimming, she notices a large black circle beneath the water, which unsettles her. Returning to shore, she examines the bag's contents, finding clothes and shoes. That night, she changes into the clothes for warmth and opens the metal box, finding bracelets belonging to the island's previous inhabitants. Suddenly, Jen hears an airplane overhead. She fires a flare gun into the sky and waits for rescue. But then she sees a massive, terrifying creature emerging from the sea. Panicking, she runs back to her fire, grabs her spear, and hides in the forest. The creature approaches her hiding spot, but after a tense moment, it leaves. The next day, Jen tries to catch fish to leave as an offering for the creature. She manages to catch a small shark and hangs it on a tree as bait. That night, she hides nearby, waiting for the creature to appear. When she wakes, the shark is gone, confirming the creature took it. The following day, Jen sharpens her spear, but notices a human body washed ashore. She rushes to it, only to find it mutilated and disfigured. She uses the body as bait for the creature, hanging it on a tree. That night, she watches as the creature takes the body back into the sea. Overwhelmed, she hears another airplane but is unable to signal it due to the creature's presence. Desperate, Jen builds a high bed in the trees, hoping the creature won't reach her. That night, during a storm, she hears the creature nearby. Unfortunately, it notices her and shakes the tree violently, threatening her safety. It was assumed that Jean fell off the bed, and Jean falls to the ground and starts running while screaming. But the monster kept chasing her, and it managed to jump in front of her, striking her with a very strong blow and throwing her far away. Jean looks at the monster, only to find that it disappeared from the island. Jean, now injured, enters the forest to hide. The next day, Jean goes into the water and washes all the blood off her body. She changes her clothes and looks at the seawater, only to be surprised by a small inflatable boat in the water. Jean quickly goes into the water, swims to the boat, and finds Lucas, her boyfriend, and their friend Mia, Brad's girlfriend, who had died. Jean takes them with her to the island and becomes very happy that they are still alive. She prepares food for them to eat and gives them drinks from the cooler. Jean warns them about the island, telling them that there is a monster and they must leave immediately. Lucas tries to calm her down, saying that she must be imagining things. Jean gets upset and tells them about the black circle in the sea where the monster takes the bodies. But still, none of her friends believe her, saying she must be imagining things because she's been alone on the island for so long. Jean shows them the family photo she found on the island to further prove her point, and she shows them the monster's eye in the pictures. Mia is shocked because of Brad's death and breaks down, crying alone for a while before returning to sit with Jean. Mia shares her fears about being in the middle of the sea on the boat, counting each day as if it could be her last. Jean tells her that staying in the sea is better than staying on this island. Mia responds, saying staying on the island is better than being in the sea because they have found food and fire. John leaves Mia and goes to sit with Lucas, telling him they must leave the island before nightfall because the monster appears at night and will kill them if it sees them. Lucas tells her about the difficult time he spent in the sea and that he would never think of going back there, especially since they have no food or fire for warmth, not to mention the storms that occur in the sea. Jean insists they must leave the island, saying she is not willing to sacrifice her life now that they have a boat to escape. She asks Lucas for his knife so she can catch food to take with them when they leave the island, as her spear is not suitable for hunting. Lucas gives her the knife and Jean goes to hunt. When Jean opens the knife, she notices traces of blood on it. At that moment, she realizes that Lucas and Mia don't want to return to the sea because something happened to them there. Jean recalls that they had a third friend with them on the boat and suspects they killed and ate him out of hunger. She chooses not to dwell on it. After gathering food, Jean returns to her friends to prepare to board the boat and leave the island. But when she reaches them, they inform her that they are not leaving the island. This is their final decision, as they can't bear to swim in the sea again. They also don't believe there is a monster on the island, saying it looks peaceful and there's nothing to fear. They accuse Jean of being crazy. They suggest an alternative solution, making a signal on the island for any passing plane so someone might see their message and rescue them. Jean disagrees, insisting they must leave. She remains adamant about her position, trying to convince them to board the boat and leave the cursed island. But none of them agree with her. Lucas becomes angry with Jean, telling her they are staying. Jean becomes upset with them and goes into the water to calm herself. An idea comes to Jean. She decides to take the boat without her friends noticing and escape, leaving them behind. She begins executing her plan, gathering all the food she collected and placing it in the boat. She starts pushing the boat into the water. At this moment, Mia sees her and informs Lucas. They both run toward Jean, trying to stop her. Jean tries to push the boat into the water quickly, but they catch her. Jean kicks Mia in the face several times to get her away. Lucas manages to overpower Jean and restrains her. At that moment, Mia hits Jean on the head with the boat's paddle, causing Jean to lose consciousness. When Jean wakes up at night, she finds herself tied to a tree to prevent her from attempting to escape again or taking the boat for herself. Her friends are in front of her. Mia apologizes for hitting her, saying she had no choice. Jean tells them they must untie her immediately because they will die from the monster. Mia decides to confront Jean about how they feel about her, telling her that she always makes up imaginary stories and lies to those closest to her because she's selfish. They no longer trust her at all. At this point, Lucas returns from the forest, informing them that after a long search and exploration, he found no monsters in the forest. Jean becomes angry, telling them the monster is not in the forest. It comes from the water, and they must believe her. Mia gets fed up and decides to walk along the shore, not wanting to hear more of Jean's words. While walking, Mia is shocked to find pieces of a shark scattered on the shore. She becomes very scared, but chooses not to tell Lucas. Back to Lucas and Jean. Lucas tells Jean about all the feelings he has been harboring, saying he no longer loves her. He accuses her of being selfish, always needing help, and even feeling upset when he is happy. He tells her he's tired of her, and now wants them to leave the island safely and go back to the sea with its dangerous creatures. Jean tries to win over his emotions, promising she won't escape or leave them on the island, but Lucas refuses, saying he knows she's deceiving him. He tells her that if she leaves the island, no one will save her, and she'll die in the sea. Lucas continues to scold her, saying she wants to leave them without food or anything to survive on. Jean defends herself, telling him the island is full of food and that her only fear is the monster that will kill them if she isn't freed and they don't escape. Jean then asks Lucas about the blood on the knife and in the boat, and what exactly happened. Lucas was about to respond when they suddenly heard Mia screaming for help, begging them to free her and escape. Jane then asked about the blood on the knife and in the boat, wondering what had really happened. Just as Lucas was about to answer, they heard Mia screaming again, pleading that the monster was going to finish her off. Lucas quickly grabbed a torch and ran toward Mia, leaving Jane tied to the tree. When Lucas reached the monster, he was shocked to find that it was real. He struck it with the torch, but the monster was unaffected. It struck Lucas and threw him far away. Meanwhile, Jane managed to free herself and ran to help her friends. When she arrived, she saw the monster dragging Mia into the water and disappearing into the black circle. Lucas watched in shock, unable to believe what had just happened. Jane grabbed him and they fled into the forest before the monster could return. They stayed in the forest until the next morning. During the day, Lucas sat in a tree, too afraid to come down, fearing that the monster might still be around. Jane reassured him that the monster only appeared at night and that she had never seen it during the day. Convinced, Lucas climbed down, and they both decided to escape the island immediately. They gathered their supplies, but Lucas blamed himself for not listening to Mia and Jane earlier, which had led to their friend's death. Jane asked for his help in collecting the necessary items for their boat. She went fishing and gave the fish to Lucas, which they cooked, knowing it would be their last meal before leaving. Jane then went into the forest and took expired medicine she had found in a family's bag. When she returned, they packed everything into the boat and pushed it into the water. As Jane stepped inside, she noticed blood on the boat's floor, reminding her of their lost friend. When Lucas boarded, Jane became wary of him, her suspicions growing. She feared that if he got too hungry, he might turn on her. Lucas continued pushing the boat away from the island, heading west, where they hoped to find rescue. Suddenly, Lucas noticed something moving beneath the water. The monster reached up, trying to pull him in, but Lucas reacted quickly, jumping back into the boat in terror. The monster attacked from below, striking the boat from all sides. They were terrified and shocked, believing the monster only appeared at night. Then, the monster punctured the boat from underneath and reached up to grab Jane. She fought back with all her strength, and Lucas helped by firing a flare gun at the monster. The flare struck the creature, causing it immense pain, and it retreated into the water. However, water started flooding the boat, and it began sinking. As they panicked, trying to figure out what to do, the monster suddenly pulled Jane into the water. It swam toward the black circle, intending to devour her. At that moment, Jane saw that the monster had a human upper body and a shark-like lower body. She remembered she had Lucas's knife, which she had used for cooking. She quickly opened it and stabbed the monster, causing it to bleed a black liquid. She swam away, trying to escape. Meanwhile, Lucas had jumped into the water to save her. The monster noticed him and charged at him, grabbing him and dragging him toward the black circle. Jane was unable to save him, and he died before her eyes. Devastated, Jane swam back to shore. Overwhelmed by grief, she found that the waves had carried the damaged boat back to the island. It was now unusable, leaving her with no way to escape. Determined to avenge her friends and escape, Jane decided to face the monster and kill it. She realized that the only way to leave the island was to eliminate the creature, making the sea safe again. Before taking action, she wrote a message in her journal, documenting everything that had happened on the island. She explained her plan to kill the monster, hoping that if she died, anyone who found the journal would know. A different number, and her son answers. He tells her what happened, saying his aunt disappeared and he has been hiding in his room for days. She reassures him and promises to come and save him. She rushes to the car, now with a new purpose for living, but discovers the keys are missing. She decides to re-enter the airport to search for the keys, armed with a wrench for protection. Inside, she searches the pockets of the first body she finds but finds nothing. As she walks, a zombie appears and tries to attack her. She uses the wrench to kill it and searches its clothes but finds nothing. She then enters another room where a zombie with its back turned suddenly attacks her. Startled, she falls, dropping the wrench. The zombie attacks, but she fights back and finds a drill nearby, which she uses to kill the zombie. After searching its clothes, she finally finds the keys. She takes them, starts the car, and drives quickly to find her son. On the way, she remembers the zombie that helped her on her journey and feels sad for killing it, but continues her path. She reaches Las Vegas and finds the city destroyed and devoid of people. She takes a crowbar for protection and enters her sister's house, finding it destroyed and her sister's husband dead in the kitchen. It seems the family is gone. She finds a blood-written message on the glass from her sister, explaining that she was bitten and decided to burn herself before turning into a zombie. She mourns her sister deeply, but continues searching for her son. She enters his room, but doesn't find him, only his toy, which she hugs while crying. Suddenly, she hears footsteps outside. Armed, she moves cautiously, but finds her son hiding in another room. She hugs him and prepares to escape quickly. However, as they descend the stairs, they find a large group of zombies trying to break down the door to enter, but she tells her son not to be afraid, and she started killing the zombies one after one. Our movie and story end here. See you in another movie and a new
Welcome to Cinema Bites, your go-to for movie recaps in a flash, big twists, epic moments, all in just minutes. The movie begins in the future with a girl named Tally. Tally was about to turn 16 years old and was eagerly awaiting this moment. In this world, when someone turns 16, they undergo cosmetic surgery and transform into a completely different person, free of any flaws in their appearance or body. They become a perfect individual with good health and no emotions. After the surgery, they go to live in the city where everyone has undergone cosmetic surgery. The purpose of the surgery is to make the entire world beautiful and unique, preventing any bullying or issues. Tally was looking forward to the surgery because she had a slight squint in her eye. She takes a look at her future appearance and then sneaks out at night to meet her best friend, Paris. Paris was turning 16 the next day and was very excited about the surgery because he would get rid of his big nose. Both of them look at the city, seeing that everyone there is happy because they all look beautiful and they feel immense joy. One of the rules of this world is that no one is allowed to go to the city before turning 16. Tally still had 3 months before she turned 16, and she told Paris that she would miss him a lot during those 3 months. They reminisce about their childhood memories, telling each other that the most important thing is personality. Even if their appearance changes and becomes beautiful, what matters is that they love each other's personalities. Tally asks him not to remove the scar on his hand during the surgery because it holds a special memory for both of them. Paris promises her that he won't remove it, telling her that she is the person he loved the most at school and that he will be eagerly waiting for her when he reaches the city. They agree to meet exactly 1 month later at the bridge so that Paris can tell her everything he's experienced. They get worried about a ship passing by them because there is a nighttime curfew, so they end their conversation and return to their rooms. The next morning, Tally and Paris go to school and attend a lecture by the school principal, Naya. Naya congratulates the students who are turning 16 that day, telling them they will become perfect individuals inside and out, and no one will hate or bully them anymore because of their appearance. She says they will finally live the life they deserve. All the students were very excited after Naya's speech. Paris bids farewell to Tally and reminds her of their meeting at the bridge in a month. Afterward, Paris leaves, and Tally returns to her room, recalling her first day at school when her parents dropped her off. She also remembers meeting Paris and becoming best friends with him, spending time together under the bridge, and making an eternal promise to always stay together and complete each other. One time, Paris injured his hand, so Tally decided to injure her hand in the same way to share everything with him. Now, at school, Tally gives a lecture on history, explaining how humans once destroyed the Earth by relying entirely on fuel, poisoning the air and water, which led to divisions and many wars. Eventually, scientists created a flower called the white tiger lily, which now provides energy for them and the entire city. After the lecture, Tally returns to her room and counts the days until the month passes and she can see Paris again. Strangely, she had been sending him messages, but he wasn't responding. The day of their meeting arrives, and despite the curfew, she decides to leave her room, leaving something behind as proof that she is still there. She sneaks past the guards and goes to the bridge to wait for Paris. After some time, Paris doesn't show up, and Tally gets upset and worried, thinking something might have happened to him. She decides to do something crazy and sneaks into the city. Once inside, she finds a mask on the ground. When she puts it on, her clothes transform into something more beautiful than what she was wearing, and she is amazed by the city's beauty. She sees that everyone there is happy and continues searching for Paris until she finds him. She stops to talk to him, but at first, Paris doesn't recognize her or her voice. She removes the mask to reveal herself, and he is shocked to see her. He asks her what she is doing there, and she tells him they had agreed to meet at the bridge, but he didn't show up, so she got worried and sneaked into the city. He struggles to respond, apologizing for being busy. Tally is surprised by his reply and looks at his hand, noticing the scar is gone. Paris tells her that after the surgery, he decided he didn't want to be flawed in any way. Tally is even more surprised, feeling like this is no longer the person she used to know. Suddenly, an alarm goes off, signaling the presence of an intruder. Tally grabs a glider jacket and jumps off the building before she is caught. The jacket allows her to land safely, and she runs away, hiding on top of the bridge. Accidentally making a noise, she is spotted by a ship that tries to capture her. However, a girl named Shay arrives and rescues her with a hoverboard. Shay, being skilled at using the hoverboard, manages to help them escape successfully. Tally thanks her, and they introduce themselves. Tally explains that she sneaked into the city because of her friend Paris, telling Shay that Paris looked completely different and seemed uninterested in her, as if his personality had changed too. Trying to hide her feelings, Tally says she has many friends and has now gained a new one in Shay. Shay asks Tally when she will turn 16, and Tally replies that it will be on September 9th. Shay is surprised because she will also turn 16 on the same day, meaning they share the same birthday. Both of them are happy because they will stay together and won't be separated. Tally tells Shay that during her surgery, she wants her eyes and hair to be golden. The next day, Shay picks up Tally to go to school, but first teaches her how to balance on a hoverboard. Afterward, they go to school, where Shay's friends tell her that a book they found is from the smoke area. Tally is surprised because books have become rare. She decides to take the book with her. Shay's friends greet Tally and ask her about the city, revealing that Shay had told everyone about Tally's adventures sneaking in and out of the city. After school, Shay continues teaching Tally how to balance on the hoverboard. They talk, and Shay expresses her desire to go to the smoke. Tally tells her that the smoke is just a myth, but Shay insists that it exists and invites Tally to join her to see it. They go to the river and leave their rings behind because the rings contain tracking devices. They both skate and print, and Shar takes her to an area that looks abandoned and destroyed. They light a fire using the old traditional method, and Shar asks her not to tell anyone about this place. She tells her that the city of Fog is real and exists, with people living there who don't undergo cosmetic surgeries because, for them, the most important thing about a human being is their personality and essence. Tal is worried and tells her they're not allowed to go to this place, and if anyone finds out, their cosmetic surgeries will be canceled. She says, "You and I won't be beautiful." She responds, "I don't want to have cosmetic surgery. I want to live in the city of Fog because there, no one judges you for anything. There's no exaggerated technology like in the city. Life there is natural, like in the old days. You live as yourself with your personality." She continues, "The day I saved you on the bridge, I was supposed to escape and go to the Fog, but I decided to save you first." Tal is shocked and surprised by this revelation, even more so when Shur asks her to come with her to the Fog. But Tal refuses, saying, "I want to be beautiful, and I want people to see me as beautiful." Shur tells her, "I see you as beautiful because your personality's beautiful." She gives her a paper with the directions to the city of Fog and says, "You're the only one who can decipher the codes on this paper. Think about it, and I hope you come." She hugs her and explains that she is going to the Fog, mounts her skateboard, and leaves. Days pass until Tal's 16th birthday. She goes with her classmates to undergo cosmetic surgery. However, while all her classmates go through with the surgery, she doesn't. A government official takes Tal on a plane to another location. Tal is confused and doesn't understand what's happening. She asks the man driving, but he doesn't respond, and she feels like something is wrong. She is taken to meet Naya, the city's director. Naya tells her that she has been missing for a while and that they received information that she went to the city of Fog. She says a man named David tricked Shai into going there. David has deceived many people and taken them there. Naya asks Tal for help and for any information that could help them find She, but Tal refuses to say anything about She, claiming she knows nothing about her. Naya then tells her, "We will postpone your cosmetic surgery until you help us find She." Tal returns to her room, very upset because she wanted to undergo the surgery. Suddenly, Piers enters and hugs her. She is surprised to see him and overjoyed. She tells him about Shai, and Piers advises her to give them all the information about She so she can undergo the surgery and join him. "We dream of being together," he says. Tal responds, "You disappeared for 3 months, and when I met you, you spoke badly of me." Piers apologizes, saying, "When you come to the city, you'll understand why I did that. But for now, you need to have the surgery, or you'll remain ugly and rejected. In my opinion, you should tell Naya everything for your own sake." Tal is convinced by Piers' words and goes to meet Naya. Naya tells her that David and his group are developing weapons to attack them because they believe their way of life is better than ours. That's why they want to kill us and destroy the city. Shai is involved with David in this plan. "I will assign you a specific mission to find the location of the City of Fog." Tal remembers the papers Shur gave her. Naya tells her, "We need to find the City of Fog to eliminate David's weapon. In return for your help, we will perform your cosmetic surgery." She shows her what she will look like in the future to persuade her to accept the mission. Tal agrees to the mission, and Naya gives her a special necklace to wear, saying, "When you find the weapon, send us a signal using this necklace and we'll come to you immediately." Tal follows She's map, facing dangerous places and using a skateboard as She taught her. After many days and nights of travel, she rests in a field of white tiger flowers and falls asleep. Meanwhile, Piers meets Naya, and it is revealed that Naya had asked Piers to convince Tal. Piers admits, "When I saw Tal, I felt emotions toward her, which is strange because I'm not supposed to feel emotions after the surgery, but I felt like I didn't love Tal." Naya tells him, "You are one of the few allowed to feel emotions, which makes you special among many people." That night, Tal wakes up to find the entire field on fire. She is shocked and nearly suffocates from the smoke and flames, but David suddenly arrives, saves her, and carries her away from the fire. He inspects all her belongings to ensure there are no government tracking devices. He finds a tracker in her skateboard and destroys it. Tal is worried he might discover the necklace, but when David examines it, he finds no tracking device. Naya learns that the tracker was destroyed and sends 2 soldiers to search the area where the tracker was destroyed. The next day, David takes Tal to a place called The Base and tells her, "We need to make sure you're not a spy before taking you to the City of Fog." She sees Tal and hugs her. Both are delighted to see each other. They sit together in a tent, and she asks her about the necklace she's wearing, as it's the first time she's seen it. Tal lies, saying, "Piers came to my room and gave me this necklace so he could recognize me after the cosmetic surgery, but I've decided to come to the City of Fog." Tal adds, "I didn't feel comfortable when I entered this place, and I'm worried about you." Shur realizes from her words that Tal came to take her back and asks her to leave and return to where she came from. But Tal says, "I can't leave immediately. I need to stay for a few days." Shur tells her, "You need to give this place a chance. Meet the people and see the place. I'm sure you'll like it and love it. I won't tell anyone what you've said to me." They agree on this. The next day, Tal sees David and his men burning the white tiger flowers. David explains, "These flowers are poisonous. They ruin the soil and kill everything on the planet except the city. This forces people to live in the city only. Come with us, and you'll see for yourself." They board a helicopter and begin burning the fields of white tiger flowers. Suddenly, 2 government soldiers arrive at the scene. David is shocked, and in the chaos, the helicopter is hit, causing Shai to fall out. Tal panics and jumps after her to save her. She manages to find She and throws a pile of fire at the government soldier, then returns to David's helicopter, and they escape from those chasing them. After that, David's assistant was surprised at how the government found them. He said, "We've been hidden for years, and no one has been able to reach us. This only happened when Tali arrived here." But David defends Tali and refuses to believe his words because Tali threw herself into danger to save something, meaning she was willing to sacrifice her comfort for something. So, it's impossible for her to be working for the government. At night, Tali recalls Naya's words and wasn't sure who was telling the truth. The next day, they arrive at the City of Mist, and Tali is surprised by the beauty of the place because everyone here works and grows their own food. The food is all natural and not genetically modified. There is no such thing as money among them. They all share and use each other's resources. Literally, everyone here is happy and content because they chose to live here. Even David, who is the leader, helps and works like an ordinary person. They ask Tali to help them with the work, and she does. She feels very happy doing something by herself, and over time, she begins to love the place. At night, David gathers everyone and speaks, saying that the government will not stop and will keep chasing them because they believe they are a threat. Here, everyone is accepted no matter their appearance or flaws, but the government doesn't like this and wants to eliminate them. They don't want them to learn or read, so they must unite to stand against them. Everyone cheers for David, and Tali feels somewhat that David's words are true. The next day, David teaches Tali how to use a bow, and she keeps practicing until she hits the target. It becomes apparent that there is a mutual admiration between them. Afterward, they take a walk, and David tells her that he was born and raised here and has never been to the city. His parents live here too. She tells him, "I don't remember what my parents look like because they sent me to school when I was very young." David decides to give her his gloves as a gift. Later, one of the residents of the City of Mist gets injured and tells David that more guards came and attacked her while she was burning flowers. This time, the soldiers were very strong and fast, but now we are safe and managed to escape them. David is shocked and thinks that the last time the soldiers managed to walk through fire, it means they have advanced weapons. Tali treats the injured girl. Later, she notices the gloves Tali is wearing and realizes they are a gift from David. She tells her, "Here, no one gives gifts to anyone because everything here is very valuable. The fact that he gave you a gift means he likes you." She also tells her, "Now is the time to choose and make your decision. Will you stay here or return to the city? Think and decide quickly. Of course, I want you to stay with us." Then she leaves her and walks away. After thinking, Tali decides to stay here. Later, she asks David